All right, I'm going to call to order this Hancock County Regular Commissioners Meeting for November 1st, 2022.
I'm going to move to adopt the agenda as presented.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Do we have any public comment?
I don't know. Oh, yeah.
I don't see any. Bo? Two?
I'm going to move to approve the minutes of the October 18th special meeting as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, now we have some time for some employee recognition.
First up, I'm going to move to recognize and thank RCC dispatcher Abraham Chevalier. Did I butcher that up too bad? For his 5 years of service to Hancock County. Thank you.
Dave, congratulations. Thank you for staying with us that long. There you go. Yep. Let's see, before we get everybody in here.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm going to keep the ball guys in the back.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Get back to work.
So we need to vote on that, huh?
Sorry about that. Second the motion.
I didn't second that motion.
I'll second the motion.
Oh, I second that motion. I
All
vote
those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Too late.
All right.
It's not funny.
Gentlemen, do I want to say anything, or can I go sit back down? Just have a couple housekeeping things. First of all, I'd like to advise the commissioners and recognize the promotion of Detective Jacob Day, Patrol Lieutenant, effective October 29th, 2022, and his wife Amanda's here in his badge.
So I gotta tell you, that's not housekeeping, that's monumentous. I think that's a big deal.
Yes, it is.
That's a big deal. Congratulations.
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to move to recognize and congratulate Detective Jacob Day on his promotion to Patrol Lieutenant effective October 29th, 2022.
Second the motion.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
You can't make that.
Okay, yeah.
You take a picture? I'll take it.
There we go.
All right.
Awesome, thank you. And the last thing I have on the agenda is just to recognize the retirement and accept of Chief Deputy Patrick Kane, effective November 8th, 2022, and approve his remaining as a part-time deputy.
I'm going to move to accept the retirement of Chief Deputy Patrick Kane effective November 8th, 2022. Congratulate him and approve his remaining as a part-time deputy.
Second the motion.
Aye.
Aye.
You know, on a side note, he's here for 35 years and then he's gone, so, you know, he doesn't stay in very long.
We all wish him well.
That's all that I have on my portion, but there's a discussion about that check that came the other day. Are you gonna take that up later today?
The jail, yes.
With the jail?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Jim?
Under the treasurer stop.
Thank you. Under the treasurer.
Yes.
Got it.
Next up, John. John.
JD, front and center. How you doing this morning?
Well,
Good.
now I apologize up front. I left work late last night. Left all my notes. So I'm gonna try memory. How's that?
You want this?
Okay. So Surrey, we had a good conversation with them. We thought that they were gonna go for a Maine Connectivity Authority grant, well, which meant they, timing wise, they had to present today that report that we typically give the commissioners. And they're actually not going for the grant. They've got some funding that will happen from the actual vendor. And they have some town funding, and then they'll come to you and ask for broadband funding that we've outlined here, and they don't need the grant money from MCA. So that will be presented, the report you will get before the next meeting, so you can look at it, and then they'll be here, and we can present an actual app request, I'll say, at the next meeting. You'll see their design and what they're doing, but they're trying to fill some gaps like everybody else that, doesn't exist.
So JD, the grant they're not applying for,
Yeah.
they just delaying applying for that, or
No, they don't need the difference. They don't need the funding.
when you say they don't need it because they're gonna pick it up from us?
They're gonna pick some up from you, but some from the town as well. And that,
Oh,
you
I
know,
don't-
that,
I'm
the
not-
MC, well, the MCA funding, has, it's for, we'll see, but typically it's for some larger projects as well, but also, there's some other stipulations that come along with it that they decided that wasn't, they don't want to go down that road.
Are the other, I know we'll talk about it then, but so are the other funding, is that all been approved on their end, do you know? or like-
That's my understanding, yes. Yes.
JD, I'm sorry, I don't want to belabor this, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be considered the cash cow for these communities and say, I don't worry about grant, don't bother with the
Oh,
grants,
yes,
you know what I
yes,
mean?
Yeah, no, I do.
County will take care of us, we don't worry about this grant, we don't want to work that hard, you know what I mean? I don't
Yeah,
know what
no,
the,
I don't think that's the case, Commissioner. And I'll go over it with them again and make sure that they understand the implications of
Yeah.
that. But it wasn't the money that they need, the monies that MCA is looking at is some fairly large amounts. And the money that they need is really just kind of a smaller gap fill for this one. I
Okay.
suppose, a little bit different than, Swans Island, who's also applying, right? They've got your money, but what they need is obviously a lot more from the grant round to build this out, whereas this one is their partner, the service provider has come out and stepped up and said, we're gonna do a bunch. And it's part of another build that they're doing, but so it's a much smaller request.
Look over it then.
Do you have an idea what the magnitude is?
I want to say it's around 150 to 170.
Altogether, or?
It's the share.
The request, yeah, request, I think it's gonna be in that area.
Their request to us, we need 150, 175.
I'll get to that when we get there. All right, what else, what next do you have for us?
So Swans Island, just want to bring that up. They're going for this grant round again with MCA. They tried it last time with a bunch of others that didn't get it because there wasn't enough money. This time we're hoping that within the MCA realm of things, there's going to be a lot more funding available from treasury monies. So we'll give that a shot. Had a good conversation with Tremont. They created their broadband committee. They're going to reach out to MCA as well because MCA has planning grant opportunities for folks. So they don't necessarily need to match that money. So MCA will provide resources to help them through the process to get them to the point of where they, can apply to MCA for grants.
Do you see some expertise in that committee, like we have in other towns?
Yes, yeah, they do. They've got a couple of folks and then they've, like I said, MCA, the way they've developed MCA is that they've got some in-house and they're going to use some subcontractors to be able to go and actually help these towns advance. one of the ideas is to do it at a quicker pace, I'll say, because the money's here now. And they want to try to, make sure that they keep communities moving along and they're not just waiting. So that's part of the MCA's goal was to keep, this planning grant is to keep people moving forward. Keep forward. Yeah. So they're asking, so that's what they do is they build, it's really just 100% on MCA. These communities don't have to pay for planning grant money, matching like the infrastructure grants that we're talking about. They'll just apply some of their in-house expertise to these committees.
Have you studied Tremont to the point of where you can determine unserved and underserved?
We did last year.
Are they severely underserved?
Yeah, this is definite. This, the main road, which everybody has, yeah, but they've got some tributary roads that really are really poor.
Mhm.
Really poor. Mount Desert, we did talk to them. They are similar to, if you remember, Lemoyne, where the Spectrum Cable, they're talking to them currently and saying, hey, there's a few dozen homes that we want to try to cover. Is that capable? So I had a good conversation with them. They're not convinced they're going down that road yet, I'll say, but they're continuing to work with Spectrum. And if that comes to fruition, they'll come back and say, okay, how do we work? What's the money involved, basically? It'd be just like Lemoyne, where it's extension, of an existing network.
And that's the town of Mount Desert?
Yeah.
Okay. It said Mount Desert Island. here,
Oh, did it?
that's why I was-
Yeah.
Okay,
Town.
Yeah.
Town. Yep. Thinking there was one other town, one up there. It just happened this last week, but I don't remember. Yeah, and then from a, utility district, I guess we call it that, I think it's a misnomer a little bit, but, from a bigger scope project. What does that look like with the commissioners? And, is there, whether it's an actual utility district or, more of a, I think spoken about it before up here, request for, I'll call it qualifications, or, RFP that says, okay, we've got this many gaps left. Who can come in and, how do we solve this once and for all?
These are the presentations we've had.
You've had a couple of those are utility district based and wouldn't rule those out necessarily, but I think if we go down this road and I'll talk about a little bit more too, but, is there a play in the near future next year, early next year to say, okay, let's put out some type of RFP, RFQ that says, here's our maps, here's the gaps.
So it'd be like the Brooksville, Brooklyn Consortium or whatever. Isn't there a couple towns in Western Maine got together and formed something?
Oh, there's a few throughout the state doing it right now. Yes, yeah.
That's what you're talking
That's a
about.
utility district. The other option is really just, if we do it from a county level, maybe just to get a request for qualification, request for RFP out that says, show a map and say, here are our gaps. Is there existing providers or new providers that want to come in and just overlay these gaps? And solve that broadband gap problem.
So is that somebody besides the utility district?
Yeah,
That's just a
yeah.
company that comes-
Utility district could be a piece of it, could be a vendor that wants to create a utility district, could respond to that RFP, and then.
Was that the proposal we heard, the last one we heard?
You had Google, and then you had GWI. A little bit different twist on both of those.
We don't, the last one struck me that when he talked about where they have utility districts now, he's talking about cities.
Large cities, yeah.
They have
They don't have
a bigger population than all of Hancock County.
Yeah, they don't have anything in the Northeast right now.
Why would they want to mess around with a little rinky dink down East County? when they-
Yeah, it's a good question, but they continue to look, we continue to work with Google,
Mhm.
find some opportunities, but there's a different model. It's definitely a different model.
are we likely to get any response or something like that, given,
Yes,
oh, really?
yes, yeah, there's a lot of interest, and you gotta remember, so, depending on that model, it's not just, okay, great, let's do the unserved, right? They're coming in to say, okay, that can help me, but I can put money in as well and build out a network. I'll get the unserved, right? I'll collect those as I go, but there's a lot of other larger, opportunities like on the island and elsewhere, variety of things that people could look at and say, well, yeah, if I'm gonna do that, I'm gonna do a bigger play and I'll do the unserved. And our goal was to take care of the unserved. If they create competition, that's okay too.
What level of participation would the county actually be involved in?
That's what we got to decide, from an RFP perspective. We, we could help you manage, write and manage the RFP and see what we get back and then work with you guys and say, okay, here's the
So
options.
you don't see us creating a department of
Utility
the county
district?
government?
No, probably not. You could. I mean, I don't want to rule out anything for you folks.
I'm not
It
sure
would
we're
be-
ready to take on that kind of
Right, it would be,
product.
if it was an ownership model, there might be ownership, but you wouldn't run it. You know what I mean? It would be, you would subcontract all of that out. That's what these folks are doing. There's one that are building it. The town says they, own it. That's great, but they don't operate it. Right, they have board of directors, bylaws and everything else that say, okay, here's how this is run, this is how the utility district is run.
So JD, are you suggesting that we consider an RFP
I think so at this point.
and do it?
Yeah, because where I'm seeing MCA positioning the monies and themselves, if you will, because they control all the monies, it's going to allow for kind of a one big swoop to say, okay, we've got the, it's not building out here, right? We still got, unincorporated townships that need a little bit, you've got Tremont that needs a little bit, you've got all these little pockets. And so how do we say, okay, here are the pockets, we agree and work with MCA to say, okay, because they're the standard, if you will, comes from mapping, right? Because when it go off their mapping as far as it comes from, federal funding, their state funding. So, okay, great. What does that look like? What can we put together for an RFP that says, here's what we need? And to your point, who do we get for responses and say, okay, I'll play in that area? And it may not just be one, right? There could be people that just want to expand outside of where they currently are. We'll take a piece of a town or some town. Somebody else may respond and say, I'll do this section over here. We'll just kind of, we can mix and match as well.
But John, that would all happen after the current round, right?
Oh, yeah. But there's,
It's not-
so just, we would, that takes time.
don't get too
We may
far
not even
ourselves.
may not even make a spring round, something like that. But there is continually money coming to the state of Maine. There'll be another $100 million coming.
So this is an action that we need to consider today or?
I would come to you with a concept and an idea. More of
Okay, I'm gonna move to accept and file a report from Mission Broadband as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, Kitty. Oh, sorry.
I think, because I'm very new to county meetings, there's several of us here, I'm told to, on behalf of Down East Restorative Justice, and I don't know if we were supposed to speak during the public comment period
It's
that you
gonna
brought up
be
earlier.
We're gonna be bringing it up towards the end of the meeting, to be honest.
Okay. Do you have like, just an approximate time so folks know?
No.
Okay. All right.
If you stay with us, you'll understand why, because we have to go through the entire agenda. If you have a copy of that, help. So you
Thank you.
would- Just like this discussion, this could have been 2 minutes, it could have been half an hour. We just don't know until we get into the meat of it, so.
Okay.
But I can tell you that we're going to try to work a lot on the 23 budget when we're done our regular meetings. So that's when that'll take place. And I can't speak on behalf of my counterparts, but we would probably jump right into the third parties
Okay.
first, if we have people waiting for that.
Thank you.
All right. Kitty?
Good morning, Commissioners.
Hello?
Morning.
Did you receive my report?
Yes.
Okay. So on the suggestion of Michael, we thought it'd be a good time to sort of reset, relevel, and provide information about where we stood through September on the ARPA funds. And the result is that report that you have in front of you. It provides just a quick summary of, what the intent of the ARPA funding was. And then I broke down the financials in a couple of different ways, by year as well as by project, and then also by what I call the large buckets that ARPA has stipulated. So it gives you a chance to take a look at where we stand, maybe look forward, see where we're going to move next. And then finally, I just put down a couple of the requests that we are still continuing to get. There is definitely a slow down stream of inquiries, but they do still exist in some of the categories I've listed there.
So when we look at it, I'm right in saying that like funds like right now that are earmarked for like Swan's Island that we were just talking about, that's just, it's not included in our totals, right? It's set off to the side.
Correct, correct. It's not, this is really dollars spent, not dollars set aside. And I'm sure Monica and Michael could give you maybe a better feel of what that number looks like.
Okay, thank you.
So do we know, do we know what a total of that set aside is? Just to add it to this number.
So, I mean, with what we've done so far, I think most of that is accounted for except for broadband. I don't know if the broadband project that the other two are in there, do you recall? And then all the other ARPA projects that are the non-specific resources are in there to the degree of what you're seeing, except for some of the ones that have been discussed leading up to like the budget process, like, what vehicles or even requests that you may have on the agenda today as well. So most of that is reflected in that.
So because we took action on Swan's Island, right?
Yeah, but there's a stipulation that they have to get the matching funds or
Yeah.
whatever the percentages of the funds. That hasn't happened yet, so that's why it's all,
Yeah, no, it makes sense that it's not in here. I was just trying to remember the
yeah,
magnitude.
that's.
I wonder how difficult it is to take the full amount of the ARPA funds and develop, I don't want to call it a budget, but a financial picture that would tell us that we're setting aside roughly 5 million for broadband. Of that, we've spent X amount. We're going to set aside, for revenue reduction or revenue restitution, whatever we call that. A certain amount, and we spent so much that we're going to buy cruises. We're going to set aside a certain amount and we spent, you know what I'm saying? I wonder how difficult it, Monica?
Yeah, that's right. It's basically setting up a budget.
Yeah, it would look like a budget, and
So
that
that
way,
we could set aside those monies for Swans Island or for cruiser, whatever projects you come up with.
right, because we do have money set aside that we
We have
know
money.
we're gonna wanna spend.
Set aside.
Yeah, we identified funds that, earmarked, right, earmarked is the word. And I think somehow we should have a resource that we could go to identify those.
Yes.
I feel like we've had.
So I can go grab a folder real quick. I think I have some more of that done already. Give you a little bit more of an idea. I just look at stuff that we had here.
Well, I'm wondering if perhaps that couldn't be a good discussion during our budget preparation, that we do that, because, I have some other suggestions. I don't want to tie up the meeting with that this morning, but later. And Kitty, while I have you here though, I was informed the other day by somebody that they've extended the deadline to spend the funds to 27, but you have to make a decision on how you're going to spend them by the end of 25. Is that correct?
I have not seen that, but I can certainly dig into that.
Somebody said okay, that would be the issue, that you have to identify where that money's going by December of 25, and you got till December of 27 to spend it, so.
Bill, the documentation I found the other day was that funds need to be obligated by December of 2024 and spent by December of 2026.
26.
Yes.
That's what still appears on the Treasury website.
Right. Right.
It's not,
Okay. So we have to obligate that money, we have to obligate that by the end of 24?
Yes.
As it stands right now.
And spend it, actually spend the money by 26?
Yes.
Well, that's all the more important, all the more reason why we should be sitting down and identifying what we have, what we want to
Yes.
do with it. I mean, at some point, we're going to have to budget these funds towards something, within the next 2 years. So Michael, I don't know if it's absolutely necessary to have it right now, but at some point today, if you have
Yeah, I
something
think
like
we
that.
have most of it. So in between, I can run up if we have a quick break.
Yep, and we'll be taking a break between meetings, and I hope.
All right, Kitty, tell us a little bit about the housing.
Yeah, so this has been out there for several months now. There is a group that wants to provide affordable housing in Ellsworth. They do have a plan. I think it's changed a couple of times due to the construction costs and whatnot. So they are very interested in actually discussing with the commissioners. I didn't really provide anything in great detail. I wanted to see if there's enough interest, then maybe Michael and I could meet with them, kind of flesh that out more and see if it's appropriate to present to you folks.
Kitty, do you know enough about this entity to know if it's a nonprofit or a for-profit company that's developing this?
Yeah, it's a for-profit.
I can tell you that right there turns me off.
Yeah.
I'd really have to know a lot more about this before I would commit public funds to a for-profit entity out there, even though they're providing a very valuable service perhaps, but.
Yeah.
uh,
They
I
do
mean,
have
it's one
support
thing-
from
one thing for
Maine
us to-
Housing Authority.
Yeah, one thing for us to develop a program and then have a for-profit company come in and complete that for us, but it's another thing for the other way around. So,
So, I mean, I agree with you on it. Obviously, though, we still need to, I would still encourage you to meet with them to get the information so we know what we're talking about.
Okay,
Greater detail.
okay.
Yes, we can always say no.
Yeah, and
We're gonna say no sometimes, so.
I know that there's a lot of other efforts on this, same front that are taking place all over the county. It just, we could easily blow a lot of money and not accomplish a lot, is one of my fears. And then, how do we pick one community over another and all that kind of thing?
Yeah, or we could accomplish a lot. So, I want you to keep open to the idea of exploring the use of the funds for housing and affordable housing. And like, I think you had mentioned, maybe trying to develop some criterias that we look at. And when you have stuff presented, to develop it for us so that we can discuss it here.
Yeah, do we have, again, do we have any idea of the magnitude? That folks are,
oh, because
what the magnitude that we need to
they could eat up
put
the
forth
full,
to make a difference?
shit, they could eat up that full 10 million. I mean,
Hmm.
Humanity for, what was the program? Habitat for Humanity, there we go. Spend $1 million building buildings and whatnot and serve 5 families. So 4 families. So I mean, that's the problem, is that you spend an awful lot of money for just a few people to address the problem. So that's why when you say how much, well, geez, they'd like to have it all. I'm sure 10 million go a long ways towards.
Sure. That's why we look at it, right? We can use
But that's why I think if we had a budget for ARPA, we could set aside
Yeah.
what we thought we would like to, whether that's 2 families or 20 families, depending on what they could do with it.
Totally agree. We can develop it.
So I'm also on the board of Covenant Community Land Trust, and I would love to talk with you all at some point about community land trust as a model to kind of solve much of what you're talking about right now. I don't know when the time is that would be appropriate.
I would talk with the county administrator.
Okay.
And you can get with them and discuss the matter. Okay? Thank you. What else do you have for us, Kitty?
So just to clarify, in the meantime, would you like me to flesh out maybe what are some potential areas in housing that we could look at?
I would-
This has been the only sort of formal request we've received.
Well, I don't understand your question, Kitty. Why do you think the problem exists more seriously in some areas, not others?
Well, I think that there is, I mean, we could look at things. We could look at Habitat for Humanity. We could look at the MDI Housing Authority and see how we could support other projects that are happening. We haven't done that work. This has been the only request we've had.
That's my point right there, is that, there are efforts all over the place. And, we have to be careful of jumping on one when there's and can we, given, the budget or, the dollar amounts we're talking about, can we really make a difference. I mean, I know of at least 5 different efforts just on the island that would qualify, that would step up for this kind of thing. We've got, this gentleman in the audience brought up another avenue that I hadn't even thought of. I wonder if we're just spinning our wheels on it.
Well, I tell you, that's a really quite a large project, because when you start talking about housing, whatnot, we're only talking about ARPA, but TIF monies in
Yeah.
unorganized territories would qualify for, for housing. So I mean, it's not just how do we spend the ARPA. If you're gonna get involved in how do we provide housing, I think that's a bigger issue than just how much money do you want from our ARPA funds?
Well, and is that really, the other thing, is that a county function or a municipal function or a state function?
Yep.
To me, this is a finite source of funds. I don't think there's gonna be excess funds. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but there's a lot of things that we need to do that are
Yeah, but one of the
Within our-
points of the funding is to assist with housing. So to ignore it because you think it's too complicated or somebody will get bent out of shape if we put money in one area as opposed to another. I mean, it's like just raising your hands up. I'll be honest, I don't want to put all of them. I am supportive of all the efforts that's happened at the sheriff's office and at the jail, and that's all great. But at a certain point, you also have to look at what the point is of the funds. It's a recovery program from the pandemic. And if everything that looks like something that's close to a social program, everybody gets all nervous and Twitter pated about it, then all we're doing is supplementing the county budget. It's all I see. So I think you have to watch out about just dismissing stuff, because it might be a difficult question, or it won't have as broad of an effect as you want.
Okay, so given that plan, I mean, Kitty's raised.
I mean, I guess I would say that I don't even know what I don't know at this point. So let me just do a little research. Let me talk to some folks and see what are the organizations in this county? What are their needs? Is this something that we could maybe support like we did the nonprofit program? I don't know. I don't know at this point, but maybe just a little bit of digging and fact finding would help us there.
And I agree with Bill that it's fine to look at it and try to think, well, budget wise, what do we want to attribute to it? And then, it's not, so you don't overextend yourself and you still leave funds for things that we need here in the county to make sure we can get the budget balanced and everything.
But I still say that every dollar we spend from ARPA that provides tax relief is the recovery. That's a recovery. So if we can save 2% or 4% in that budget from ARPA funds and whatnot, that's real money from people's pockets that you'll have to pay in property tax. And I think that's just as much relief as some of these other programs, so.
So I mean, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I think the housing thing is a good idea. And I understand about the ARPA money, but you have TIF money too, and I've said this before and I'll say it again. Why you don't explore Fletcher's Landing, use your TIF money and a little bit of your ARPA money, and you could do something with that, right, Kitty? I'm just saying, Fletcher's Landing is just across the Ellsworth line. It's cheaper taxes for people if you need affordable housing than being across that line in Ellsworth. I just say that to you.
And that gets back to my point is that we're not talking just about how we're gonna spend ARPA. We're talking about developing a major program here on how to provide housing. And are we ready to jump into a project that big?
I think that's really what Kitty and I were trying to find out is like, since we haven't had these discussions, what's the pulse of the commissioners, and where do you want us to go? And certainly we haven't provided you with anything yet, but we can do that and come back where you might be able to answer and have more meaningful conversations to say, yeah, this is well beyond what our capabilities and structure should be, or, maybe there are a few projects that would fit. We haven't spent a lot of time on that, because obviously that's really what today we're hoping is to get some more priorities from you, or emphasize or go back to priorities, things that we've done in the past, but you haven't necessarily expended everything or had all the effort that you want to put into that, and have us go back and start looking at those again as well. So certainly, I think it's on the radar, and it sounds like Kitty certainly knows kind of where to go with it at this point, so.
Do you?
I'm sure I start turning over one rock, I'm gonna guess there's gonna be another dozen right there as well, so.
Yeah, again, my only fear is, you know, getting something so big and we can't make a difference, and we've expended a lot of money and time researching it, because it does take money to research it. But that's why I asked, is this doable? And I think your answer is yes. Kitty?
I don't know. I honestly don't know what I don't know. I think we need to start with, yes, there's interest by the commissioners that they'd like to at least push this a little ways forward before making a decision one way or the other. But that's, you know, that's your decision.
All right. Anything else?
Well, do they have, the question is, do they have the direction that?
Do you think you understand?
Because I'm not sensing clear direction.
I mean, I'm thinking that you're obviously looking for more information before you make a decision.
Yeah.
So I thought that's kind of what she was gonna
Okay.
do, so.
Go ahead.
I've been researching affordable housing for several years now and can gladly connect you with a lot of resources to understand what's fiscally responsible, what best practices are, maybe help you get a jump start on some of that research. Wherever the money ends up, I want it to be well spent, because I want people to be housed.
For the record, do you mind identifying yourself? You don't feel necessary. You can tell Mike later, but for the record, to the,
Oh, Brad Steelfon.
how do you spell your last name?
S is in Sam, EAL, F is in Frank, O, N is in Nancy.
Thank you.
All right, we're gonna move on.
Okay, how about, I'm gonna move to accept and file a American Rescue Plan update from Barbie Businesses Services presented dated 11/1.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen.
Yeah, excuse me, Katie, before you go.
Yep.
If we in fact try to develop a budget later today in a meeting, do you think that's something you need to be involved in? Or is it just something that we'll craft and get back to you?
Well, I think Monica and Michael have that end of it, what is, you know, potentially obligated out there. And then I can work with them if they need help pulling it all back together again on this budget.
Okay, I didn't want you to feel left out if we found out later.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, Miller.
Good morning, commissioners.
Aye. Do you have anything to add to the update or?
In my UT report, under item H, the motor vehicle agreement. Bureau of Motor Vehicles has told the Waltham First Selectman that the excise tax monies have to be returned to the county. He's asking if the county will then send the excise tax to Waltham. That was part of the agreement when we made with Waltham in May, that they would get the agent fees and excise tax money if they would do the work.
I don't see any issue why we wouldn't be doing it.
That's a given, I think.
Yeah, well, that was actually part of the agreement. It's just the state is saying they can't do that. The funds have to flow.
It's just money's gonna come here and we're gonna have to spend it back out to Waltham.
Yeah,
Thank you, Steve Lane, for your
yeah,
assistance.
yeah.
Okay.
General consensus on that.
So, yeah, general consensus that
Yeah.
that goes back.
Yeah, to me, that's what we signed.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm gonna move to accept and file the UT Supervisor's October report as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, we have a new contract, it looks like, huh?
Yes. Last year, we had a contract with Penobscot County for snow removal on the Nicotawis Road. Midway through the year, they had to fire the contractor. And this is an example of low bid, I guess. He underbid, couldn't do the work. So he was dismissed and they went back out to bid. Got another the new contract is with the guy that bailed him out last winter. It's an increase to us, but it's almost like a sole provider up there that we contract with Penobscot County.
So first, I'm gonna move to cancel the existing 2021 agreement for the storage of salt, sand, and snow removal between Hancock County and Penobscot counties as recommended.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then this is pertaining to the new one. I don't know if you wanted to add anything, Millard, if I should just go ahead. How about I make the motion? You can, I'm gonna move to approve and sign the new 2022 agreement for the storage of salt, sand, and snow removal between Hancock County and Penobscot counties as presented.
Second the motion. Is this a multi-year contract, Millard?
Yes,
When you say,
it's the,
Through 24, and then there's options.
I know you said in your motion, you said the 22 contract, but
Well, I said the new 22.
I thought you said the 2022.
Sign the new 2022 agreement. I guess I should describe it a little differently.
Just say multi-year.
The new multi-year. Because actually it's through 24. And then there's two options, right?
Right.
yes. In the past, they have done this continuously. Done a 3-year contract with the two options, and they've always stayed with the options.
I just say sign the new agreement. Take the year out of it. The agreement specifies the dates. That,
It's fine with me. Yep.
okay. So that's, you want me to reread it, or does everybody understand what I
You
did?
know what you're doing.
Yeah. Second.
I second it. Yes.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, Commissioners. And the other thing is the agreement. Alpha has gone out to bid for curbside, for all of their curbside pickup. And they included Fletcher's Landing in their bid packet. And it's gonna cost us $4,000 a year for curbside pickup and Fletcher's Landing. There's an increase of about $600, but with the cost of diesel fuel and everything, I don't think that's unreasonable. And this is a 5-year agreement.
I'm gonna move to approve the agreement with the city of Ellsworth for curbside pickup of trash in Fletcher's Landing for the sum of $4,000 a year. We paid in monthly installments of $333.33.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
I have one more item, it's just kind of for your information. We received our TIF payments. And the Bull Hill payment was for $149,441.13. And it was supposed to have been for $150,455.75. We got back $1,014.62 less than what was in the Maine Revenue Service commitment book. On Hancock wind, we should have got $340,789.15. And we only received $328,436.83, or a difference or a loss of $12,352.32. I contacted Maine Municipal, and the answer that I got, I asked them these are different. Why? Was there an abatement? Why don't the numbers match? And the response I got is the difference in the TIF reimbursement and what is listed in the commitment book is the OAV, original assessed value. I've been an assessor since 1987. The number that's in the commitment book is what you're supposed to get for tax payment. The only reason there can be a change in that is if an abatement was granted. But in their response, they refuse to use the word abatement. But I think this is typical with these TIFs. We know we're only going to collect about 40% of what they originally promised us. And these abatements happen every year or every other year. So instead of 40%, we'll be lucky to get 30%. I will continue to follow through and find out if an abatement was issued and why it was issued.
And this is a case where the state doesn't get any money, so they don't care, right?
That's right.
No big
Yeah.
deal. If they abate them, they don't lose any funds because they don't get any in the first place, correct?
I think you're absolutely correct there. I think the state has no dog in this fight. So if they get an abatement request, they just grant it and move on.
But isn't an abatement request a legal proceeding of some sort? I mean, you just can't abate something because you want to, right? And
Yeah,
isn't,
that's absolutely correct. And the abatements should be a matter of public record that we could have copies of.
yeah, so to me, we should be getting what's in the commitment book unless there's an abatement, because
Yes.
I think that's the law. And if there isn't an abatement on record, then we should be able to get a copy of that abatement. I mean, that's the only thing that can reduce that amount, I think.
On top of that, when there's an abatement request, I mean, we should be party to that.
Oh, I guess in this instance, we're not. I don't know why.
No, well, no, we're not, because Maine Revenue Service is a unique situation in the unorganized territories. In a municipality, the tax assessor and the tax collector have to be two separate people by state law. But in the unorganized territory, Maine Revenue Service acts as the tax assessor and the tax collector. It's kind of a unique situation, and it leaves the county completely out of that process.
We still should be able to get a copy of the abatement or proof of the abatement.
Exactly, yes. Should be public record.
Give us an update, obviously, after you do what digging.
I'm wondering if Millard could just repeat the difference on the first amount for,
Well,
Bull
Bull
Hill.
Hill, yeah, $1,014.62.
Okay, thank you.
You got the one for Hancock?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Sure. And the only other thing I've got, commissioners, is we talked about a field trip.
I think we should wait now at this point, just because we're gonna be busy this next month, just making sure we get through the budget. I know Paul's gonna be gone for a little bit, and so it was a
Okay.
good idea, but let's wait until we get through the mud season and then we'll do it.
Yeah, let's wait till the flies are thick again.
Yeah, it's like last time.
Small.
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Okay, yeah, it's all right with me.
do it on snowmobiles.
Well, I mean, wouldn't be unlikely to have a 60-degree day in December, so.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, if we do it on spur of the moment.
All right, it could be a good idea that you may want to go look at some of these roads when they're snow covered.
You never know. All right, well, we'll consider that.
Thank you, Millard.
All right, thank you.
All right, now we're ready for the airport.
What we have is a report.
It's not there now.
All right,
It's gonna be interesting, that we're not gonna see Jason Homiak on the monthly report every other month. You know, Jason's leaving.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hope this new guy, John Pelletier, fills in as well as Jason.
I'm gonna move to accept and file airport manager's October report dated 10/25 as presented.
Second motion.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. And we're ready for the E EMA.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. I apologize for not coming up. I have another engagement downstairs here.
Hi, Andrew.
I'm gonna move to accept and file the EMA Director's October report dated 10/25 as presented.
Second motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anything to tell us, Andrew?
No, I just want to make sure that you don't have any questions about anything contained in my report, Commissioners.
Oh, thank you.
I don't think so. I think it was pretty good, straightforward.
Yeah.
Thank
Great,
you.
well, thank you very much. I
Thank you.
appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, now we're ready.
That's it. You think you're ready? Good morning. Sure, go ahead.
So
You look-
some,
Oh, I had a question. I wanted to do I understand that we owe the balance of the 106,900 to
Harris,
Harris. What's the relationship between that software and the
extract.
extract?
It's not their product, but they use it a lot, and that's the automated indexing product.
And what's the Harris software do?
That's our recording software. That's what we put our documents into.
All right, I'm going to show you how ignorant I am. Now, how does indexing and recording
Go together.
go together?
Well, we can scan that document and put it in the system, but if there's no indexing, information can luck
I
finding
never
it.
find it. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I see.
There you go.
Well, I'm curious.
That's a
as to
simple way to say it.
Why wouldn't Harris have an indexing that goes with theirs? Do they?
Do they what? Have their own
Have-
indexing?
Yeah.
Well, they partner with
Oh,
this
I see.
company.
Oh, I
This
see. So
company has
this
the
is how
product.
they do.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes.
And that explains why we should be approving
The extract now.
extract and Harris, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the extract, is a lot of before the project work on our part. A lot of questions. How do you index your documents? You know, it's a lot of work. And, so it would help to be doing that now.
right now, in our budget for 2022,
Mhm.
do we have part of this allocated?
We do, but you know, 2 weeks ago,
Yeah.
I did something I had never done since I've been here, and because you authorized me to overdraw my recording software line, and it about kills me when I know that this
Yeah.
money
Yeah.
is for this, and that's revenue that the county would have received. It's killing me.
Yeah.
It really is. Looks bad.
So I guess the question is, does this action impact the budget? I think
You could actually decrease that line,
that's what I,
That's what-
and I've actually been trying to, you know, figure that out,
Yeah.
how
Yeah, 'cause-
much.
because to me, that's what,
Yeah.
you know, that's what this is for, or,
Mhm.
And a
and,
good use of it. Yeah.
or a good, yeah.
Yep.
And that is a vital county function.
Mhm.
So I've got a couple motions prepared, but I would like, I think we need to remember this when we get to the budget.
Well, I was gonna ask you, can you come back later today for the budget prep? We're gonna work on the budget.
I am, and I'm actually gonna go down and try to project how many months it would be, so I could give you a pretty close number, because
No, well, bring us back everything, with you,
Yep.
that you can and be prepared to discuss your budget in detail. Good.
Okay, so the first one is I'm gonna move to authorize the purchase of the extract indexing software for the sum of $41,752 to be paid with ARPA funds as recommended.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 And then this next one, we're already committed to this. The reason for this motion is to take it out of ARPA instead of
just the rest of it,
the rest of it. Yeah.
just the rest of it.
Yeah, so I think I have this right. Move to authorize the balance of the Harris claim software in the sum of $53,450 to be paid with ARPA funds.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 I'll go with it.
Really, will that all be done this year, the 53,450?
No.
The five,
No, it will be done, I would say by June of next year.
okay,
Because
Yeah, because there was
Milestones.
there was milestones on implementation, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Because it's ARPA, that makes it easier, doesn't it?
yeah.
Monica?
There-
In other words, you don't have a
it's
budget, you don't have two
5
budget years to
All
work.
right,
but
equal
when will
amount.
we be making the first?
Not before January. I can tell you that. We won't hit any milestones before January.
Okay, that's
So-
what I needed to.
Yeah, and actually, when I go downstairs, I'm actually gonna reach out to them to get some kind of time frame so my money's accurate when I come back up.
So neither of these things are happening this year? Or is
The
First?
half payment to extract,
Okay,
that will be due, but the rest of that is milestones too, but it's mostly right before it goes live,
okay,
which would be the same time frame as this.
okay.
Okay,
Based on the schedule, you gave us the 20 initial payment.
Right.
20,000.
that's the initial payment, and the rest of it will be next year. Okay, I'll be back.
Patrice can call you when we're getting close, so
Yeah.
you don't have to set your own.
Yeah. Thank you.
Hello.
Hello. Couple quick things. First, approval to promote Corporal Christine Newman to Sergeant effective November 5th. This promotion will fill the current sergeant vacancy that she has been working on classification.
So I'm gonna move to approve Corporal Christine Newman's promotion as sergeant effective November 5th as recommended, and congratulate her on her promotion. I know she's been doing it, but congratulations.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Unfortunately, after all our work, we've, and the jail nurse has decided to move on, so I'm looking to accept the resignation of contracted jail nurse Lisa Parkins effective October 28th, 2022.
I'm gonna move to accept the resignation of contract nurse Lisa Parkin effective October 28th. Thank her for her service to Hancock County. From what I understand, she was a true asset.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Sorry, fell asleep.
And C has been extended. We cannot do that today because one of the interviews is happening right now as I'm down here. She's meeting with a nurse practitioner but hopefully next meeting will be selecting a new jail nurse.
How do you fill that job in the meantime?
Yeah. Shepherd and, well, as you know, we had how many years without a jail nurse, but Queen Shepherd, no community corrections officer really is what Shepherd saw, she myself, and the sergeant's on shift, a little more burden for.
Would it help to have a tentative approval from us before the next meeting?
Well, I'll bring that to you, but I need to run it by since it's an MAT grant funding, they have to approve that she meets the requirements before we can.
Okay.
I think it's gonna be fast moving. Both of them are RNs that are in the running. Both have a lot of ER experience. Both have psychiatric services in the past, so
Okay.
they're both, this would be tough decisions where we go, if you were qualified, which we thought we would be months to try to find somebody. They've heard about the program, one lady, she's heard about the program, so she's part of it, so they know we're doing some good things here, so they want to be part of it.
That's great.
Sounds good.
But C, I would like to add though, ask permission, to work part-time COs as part-time cooks at part-time CO pay that already have the certifications. As you know, we have a part-time cook now that like to become a corrections officer, part-time corrections officer. And it's hard to find a part-time cook. We've been struggling for that. She would like to move into she's shadowed the staff. She'd like to move into part-time corrections, but doing that's going to leave us a vacancy again for the staff to go on cooks to go on vacation, the cooks. I'd just like to see if we could.
Tim, excuse me. You want to take an existing CO and work them part-time cook and pay them CO pay?
She's right now, she's part-time cook. She's not taking the part-time CO until we figure out what's going on with this, but I'd like to promote her to part-time CO. And then when we need her in the kitchen, to use her to fill in for the part-time cook, but at the CO pay.
Well, I can see our responsibility is to approve that appointment to CO. But as far as what she does for work, that's between you and the sheriff. I think if she works anywhere in the jail as a CO, she gets CO pay, whether that's, janitor work or whether that's, so I don't think that's our responsibility to approve that. I think that's yours and the sheriff's. So,
Well, as department heads.
yeah, right.
But I
And so,
also didn't know.
right, if you want us to approve appointing her as a CO, we'll be glad to do that, but I don't think we have a responsibility. I think that's department head.
Okay,
Do you want us to do that today?
no, I don't have, she wanted this, I told her we need to have this discussion before we come forward.
I'm glad you don't, because I really like to see things like this on the agenda before we take official action.
No, we don't want any official, I just want you to know that that's where we're going with it. and-
Okay.
Well, that will help you fill your,
She does a great job in the kitchen. I wish we had a hire full-time, third full-time cook. But we don't have the ability, so. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. All right. Wait, does sheriff have another issue into the jail?
it's under the commissioners when we.
It's actually under the treasurer.
Excuse me, treasurer, yeah.
It's the National
13D.
Opioid Fund discussion.
I see, okay, gotcha.
Right?
Yes.
All right, we've got your monthly report. Do you have anything to add to it or expand on?
I might add that I had heard from the Historical Society regarding a film or publicity event that's going to take place the weekend or next Monday. Could we have the cars parked in a different place for that time? And I said, we do everything we can.
How long is it?
I think just for the morning. They've got,
Yeah.
they put a new sign up there.
Cones up.
Oh, they did. Okay, so it's probably today. I think Dave did that this morning. So they've entered into some type of partnership or arrangement with, do you know what the sign says? I'm like, oh, no,
On top of my head.
it's, not the Jackson Lab, but some larger outfit they've taken on as a sponsor or some such. And,
So they need where the employees back or just where the sheriff?
just on the grass, yeah, the grass area,
Oh, grass in front?
right? Just to keep it clear for a photo shoot,
Yep.
so.
It's not a big deal.
Right, just, and they're worrying about their flower beds out front. And I reminded them that they're there with the permission of the commission and they are responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of them, and they seem pleased with that. And no word on when they're gonna show up for their preventative measures through the winter. But hopefully sometime the next month, there's gonna be a weather concern.
Yeah.
So,
Okay, so I'm gonna move to accept and file October report from the maintenance director dated 10/27 as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 yeah, and now, you'll see Monica and I have, gotten together and produced this, this transfer request. In the amount of, let me say, 3,000. To get this electrical work done up in the jail that will allow us to plug in the tractor, possibly the generator, and, give us some expansion in the, jail's switchgear room as well.
So I'm gonna move to approve and sign the request for transfer between accounts for the transfer of funds from county buildings account G13011-00 to the jail maintenance reserve account R06-200 for for updating the sub panel outside of the jail receiving as recommended.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
Then item C, you should have the quotes in front of you for the fire suppression system. And this was something that Chuck brought to forward as a concern, and so we went on the search for some proposals for this. This is a gas-based people and equipment safe system that basically starves the fire of oxygen, but doesn't damage any of the equipment in there. We, although found no mandate for this, we did find that we are obligated to protect and guard against the loss of prevention, and this is a measure that will do that. And also it helps to protect a pretty serious investment counties make in terms of these server rooms.
So you only got two quotes, Dennis?
I got three.
Oh,
It should be Interstate Fire, Maine Fire Protection, and Morris.
And if you,
Maine.
I only have two here, but
I only have two.
Yeah, you talked about three. You have a recommendation?
I'm recommending Morris.
What's the amount for the main?
Maine Fire Protection Systems is $23,626 for both.
So say that again, 23,000.
When you say both, what do you mean?
For our server room and the E911 server room.
So when
So
I'm
there's
looking at
two
Moore's
spaces.
and they have a 12,777, is that for one?
That's for one.
So we have to double these numbers to compare?
There are two separate numbers for, if you keep, are you on Interstate or Morris?
I'm looking at Moore's.
Yeah, my
Yeah.
sheet from Morris says.
Morris is should be 2 pages.
All I get's one.
Yeah, all I have is one.
Well, they probably look the same.
So the second one is 12,950.
So my question is this, I didn't have this one and we don't have a second page of this. Is there a reason to take this up at this meeting? I mean, can we, because I really did.
Yeah, sure. We can put this forward if you want to make a decision
Uh,
today, but my
Well, no.
recommendation will be the same.
Okay, because I didn't know, because I didn't have this one. Your recommendation is Morris for how much? 23,000?
Looks like 25,725.
It is, it's a bit more, but that's our current vendor and,
We just don't have that second page.
What's the total? 25 what for Morris?
25,725
And what's the total for interstate?
is Interstate is 16.
it's 23. Interstate is way over.
It's a 16 plus 16.
16 plus, yeah.
Yes, it's 32, 33,000.
So,
Oh,
I only have the one page of Morris, so the pages are not equal then, if the amount is 25,725.
Yeah, they did provide that $200.
12,950 is the second number.
Yeah, that, I have this. So what's the feeling here?
I'm,
But this, on the interstate one, when I look at the information, I just want to make sure I'm seeing it. Okay, okay, I see the two prices.
I'd still like to have a total of that. Monica, do you have the total of that? 33,000.
I do not on interstate. Is it the,
Well, it's, if you could do the math, 16,840, 27 plus 16,442, 04.
33, 282, 31?
So you're suggesting Morris, which is 2,100 more than the lowest bidder.
Yes,
Middle of the road.
for the reason also is that this is our current provider and we'll provide the maintenance for all systems on a yearly basis, which they do already.
Where else do we have their systems?
All of our fire extinguishers are serviced on an annual, semi-annual and annual basis by Morris. And if we have units that have gone out of certification, they take them and do the refilling and recertification as well and deliver them back to us.
Now, there's usually systems like this, there's also, because if there was ever a person in here, I mean, these are a hazard, right? We have to have some alarm, some system that goes off before tell people to get out of there.
We do, and the next step with this is coordinating with Simplex to put it into our fire panel. So an alarm here would alert our Simplex central panel. And also there is another handheld device, a Halon unit that's required to be outside the door of each of these rooms.
Yeah, so we'll have some other added expenses.
It will, but all small enough to be budget items.
I'm good with taking action on it though, obviously.
I am, and then I'm satisfied that Moore's is.
Just make sure.
Can you craft
make
that?
sure that we.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I just double checked.
Yep.
With the commissioner's office before.
So, Paul, we're gonna approve the clean air fire suppression system for Moore's Fire Protection in the amount of 25,725. Is that correct?
To be paid out of ARPA funds is what the recommendation is.
Yeah, that's, it was brought to me in that form with that recommendation.
Is that what?
Yep.
That's the recommendation.
That's an IT concern.
Yep.
So I'm gonna second that.
No, I was trying to assist you with a motion.
Oh, okay.
So you could type that motion in.
Yeah, okay, so I'm gonna approve, can I have that? Morris thing? I'm gonna approve the, I guess, the purchase of the fire suppression system in the server room and 911 server room from Morris Fire Protections for the amount of $25,725 as recommended to be paid out of ARPA funds.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you, gentlemen.
What else we got?
Item D here is a request for partial unpaid leave for Diane Arisgado. She'll be out of the country commencing November 10th through January 27th. This partial unpaid leave will allow us to prorate Diane's benefit time to cover her payroll withdrawals and so forth throughout the time of her absence.
This is what we did last year too, right?
It did,
Kind
and
of
when she
extended
was,
before.
yeah, she was delayed coming back, and it was
COVID.
during
Last year,
COVID.
2 years
It
ago.
was, yeah, it was 2020, right?
Yeah.
2 years ago.
So she ended up spending like 6, 8 extra weeks.
Yeah, tell me about it.
Yeah, it does seem like more recent.
You understand that, Paul?
Yes, I think I understand.
So what we'll
There's no
do,
cost.
no, we'll come to the HR and determine a number of hours per week that satisfies her deductions and gives her a little bit of paycheck, but will make her hours go through the entire period that she's gone. Without a lapse and, having to cause a lapse.
And there's no, that's what we did. We're not breaking any policy there where
No, we did the same thing.
is that,
Same accommodation we made 2 years ago.
okay. So that's right.
So,
Okay. So I'm gonna move to approve the partial unpaid leave for Diane Periscondo, is that right?
Yep.
From November 10th, 2022 to January 27th, 2023 is requested.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Commissioner, she was planning this trip for the 1st of September, and so these arrangements were set up by Patrice and Rebecca last June or so, May, when she was planning it, and so it's just really a postponement of that same plan.
All right, so our discussion on the generator.
Yeah, so I have received one prize, but I've got, I contacted Central Maine Diesel, Caldwell Diesel, and I've also had a couple of recommendations for private parties to look at this from the standpoint of creating for us a off-grid standalone power system. And I did get a price back on a prime type generator from CMD, but they didn't really understand what the request. We need to refine that more closely. And ideally, we'd have someone that could put our solar system, a new prime type generator into a package that works alongside the utility that we have. So our service up there is seamless, and that's what we're going for. And also to provide some type of monitoring system. So we know when the outage happens, which was a big part of the problem. We're really, closing the barn doors after the horse is out when we don't know we haven't had power for 3 weeks. So
Are you coordinating this information in a written specification that you can give out to vendors?
yes, I am.
I'd like to know that everybody got the same information.
Right. Working
And
on all of it,
nobody-
yes.
And nobody knew what the others were bidding and.
Yeah, and also, I'm also open to fresh ideas too. So this spec and this idea is, if there's a better way, we want to know about that as well.
And you can write that right into your specifications, right?
Exactly right.
Right.
And so what we'll want is, and it's not necessarily going to be that the same company provides us with the system and the monitoring, but the two that we talked to, Caldwell and CMD, did do that. They both have monitoring systems that they can install that are cellular based. Or we did discover that Tower 11 has the internet, but they won't let us use it. So back to square one.
Well, if their internet's as reliable as their land
Yeah.
power, they can keep it. So.
Right, so it's, we do have pretty good cell tower signal up there. So my feeling is that, and also since we started this project, the technology has really improved with monitoring cameras. Bob said in Farmington, they have a ring camera.
So you don't need action from us today then, huh?
No, just to bring it up to date.
I'm really pleased to see that we're working towards some kind of a system-wide,
Right, something that is
long-term
foolproof.
fix.
And if there is a trouble, we have a resource we can call rather than, scrambling to get up there to see,
Yeah, exactly.
to do whatever we can do.
And when we find it's been broke for 2 weeks, and we have no idea.
Exactly right. So when this comes, gels together, it'll be a much more sophisticated proposal. Include all of these elements.
Good. Thanks, Dennis.
Sure, thank you.
Anything to add or situation on your report?
The only thing I wanted to bring briefly to your attention is the Ellsworth's proposal recommendation to add a backup dispatch. I think Andrew and I have talked a little bit, some of the things that were going to be required for us to put a couple of consoles out there was going to be wildly expensive, I think. Included running fiber optic up there and this and that. And I think based on the proposed EMA project, why pay for it twice? And we can marry together. The other project was to provide them P25 radio capability because on our dollar, which I think is again cost prohibitive. That would also increase our service costs by adding consoles and radio equipment and all those things. As you see this year's budget, that's gone up quite a bit with the radio upgrades we've already done. And it had a very, very compressed time frame. They were looking to do it almost immediately. And we're not ready for that. So
It doesn't sound like it.
I mean, it's not great on the surface, but as you delve into it, it's like, geez, it's, we do the same thing here in the future possibly with another county or entity where it just makes more sense for us to go with that project versus this project. So.
Well, I gotta tell you that it's probably wise to hold off anyways, because there's a good chance they're gonna revisit moving up there.
But that was the other issue.
They'll like nail that down and, really it's a moot issue, so.
I think that's the only real thing.
Okay, so I'm gonna move to accept and file an October report from the ICC director dated 10/27 as presented.
Second the motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay. The second motion is Denham Fire has finally decided that they would like to, they are in our trial phase right now with the iron responding. It seems to be working okay for them. So they did request that we move forward with assisting them with receiving and responding to the county subscription.
Are you dispatching for that?
We're not, but they're dispatched to Penobscot County. But their argument was that we provided it for the other Hancock County Fire Departments. So
I understand, it's just, as you can provide that service even though you're not dispatching, correct?
Right, basically we're just paying for it.
I see they're getting it from somebody else.
They're getting it from somebody else. They did finally go into the, they get like a 2-month free trial and it seems to be working well.
How do you pay for that, remember?
We did it through our.
ARPA, and that's why we paid ahead.
Yeah, we did the 5-year.
Yeah.
And I would request that we do that again with this, and based on the amendment that I received, it was $585 a year, which is.
Yeah, it's 2960.
There's no deduction for 5 years payout.
That is.
That is.
Oh, that
That
is.
is what it's. Yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons that we did it ahead.
Yeah,
Now-
because normally it's $600 a year for the department, that number that they have. So based on that 5-year subscription, it was knocked down to $585.
So as I understand, because I remember getting that sort of curt letter from the fire chief. As I understand it, they're just dispatched from Penobscot County. And this is probably in use in Penobscot County, but they're in Hancock County. This is a straight face.
Yeah.
Expenditure just like it was for any other county.
Correct. They opted several years ago to be dispatched through Penobscot RCC. So when we take a 911 medical or fire call, those are transferred to Penobscot, they process it. Where we document that we had the call and then they are dispatched through Penobscot's CAD.
But my point is, we're not treating them any differently because of that.
No.
And we're not nor are we incurring any extra costs because of that.
No.
Okay, so,
So simply providing another Hancock County Fire Department with the same product, just being dispatched.
that we offer to everybody. Okay, so I'm gonna move to approve adding the Dedham Fire Department, Hancock County's I'm responding subscription in the amount of $2,960 to be paid from ARPA funds as requested.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Do I need to say it?
I signed you on.
Yeah, we approved it, so.
Thanks. Perfect. Thank you.
Ready for all?
Treasurer, I'm gonna move to approve the monthly bills and warrants as presented.
Second the motion?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, so this is, I think, where we want the sheriff, right?
Yep. Sheriff?
Oh, he's back there.
Yeah.
Oh, he's been there
You
so
were
long.
hiding.
He's been there so long, you look like a permanent.
Well, no, I
fixture.
couldn't see him.
That's okay. That's the worst thing that happens to me today. I'm gonna be all right. I just wanted to be present to see what the discussion was. I was unaware of that check. It showed up on my desk for some reason, and I took it up to Mike. We had a conversation, and I also talked to the Attorney General that sent the letter to us, and I suspect you all understand what this is now, what this settlement is. It's basically money that's come from opiate manufacturers and et cetera, and this is the first one.
How's it gonna get broken down again? Like,
Well, the AG's office was unsure on how that was gonna be, but they told me that some of these payments are gonna be strung out as long as 18 years, depending on it. So some of the payments, depending on who they settle with, will be larger than they are, depending on who they settle for the funds with.
What's the amount of your check?
Well, that one was 54,000, and
54 or 61.
And I was advised when I had that conversation that another check would be coming shortly. What their definition of shortly is, I don't know, and it was going to be larger than this one, and again, they couldn't tell me how much larger it was going to be, but they're going to come incrementally as these settlements are, as they are finalized through the courts.
So the first question I have is, and maybe you're gonna get to this and I should be quiet, but I'll answer my question. I'll ask my question. To me, you know, the jail is who's dealing with this, and
That's
they're,
why I'm here.
and this is squarely, you know, and that's where we're having a lot of funding issues. And to me, that's the purpose of these funds, is to help, you know, a lot of these folks beat this.
And one of the questions that I asked is that if we dedicate this to a certain account or a certain project, can it change going down the road? Let's say for some reason, that's not needed going down the road, that yes, you can change
Or
and
there's a
sign.
better program or whatever.
Exactly, exactly.
And in response to that, I'd like to see these funds go into a standalone account. And every time you have a program that requires these funds, you come to us and tell us what that program is, and then we can deliberate on whether or not to expend those for that, as opposed to giving the sheriff a check for 54,000, say, go ahead and spend it as you see fit.
No, I think that's what he wants.
Commissioner, I think Mike and I and Monica, we had that conversation, part of that conversation, that it should go in a standalone account, and then we make decisions, or you make decisions on where that
And
goes.
I absolutely agree with that. I think we just take and dedicate this to a standalone account. And whether it be you or another entity that believes that they have a, drug problem.
That's what we need, is direction on where to hold the funds. Do we hold?
Well,
the funds?
my personal opinion is, it's just a standalone account, so you have an income account where this goes into, and then a way to expend that as we move to do that.
And some of my point is that some of these programs are in existence now and being funded,
Yeah.
we're scraping to fund a lot of these things that, so to me, this,
It's a blessing.
yeah, it's a blessing, and that's what these funds are for.
Right.
We may already be doing, in fact, some of it you're doing, I say we, you,
You know, and I'll be selfish with that, Paul. There's no question there is a huge opioid problem out there, and there are a lot of organizations and groups that are working towards that. But we have a huge problem with the inmates that we have in here, and this would help with programming that we do here. And I really think the responsibility that we have and the liability that we have is that we offer these programs and that we have these things, and if we have money coming in from sources like this, we should be using it to fund those programs. So I guess
Absolutely.
selfishly, I'm saying, I think we need to take care of ourselves before we go worry about taking care of someone else.
And I don't think there's any, any dispute there, whatnot. I think Monica needs some direction as to how to account for the money and how she's gonna disperse it and whatnot. And if you're talking about specifically, I think we're getting in the weeds there. You two should tell us how you want to set that up, knowing that we want to receive it, and then we want to expend that by.
Because there's things in this budget today that you're doing that really should be paid out of this.
Could be. It could be.
You know, I can't point to them specifically, but I visited up there and I know you're doing a lot of the things that this money should be.
You know, and if that's what the agreement's gonna be of the commissioners, then it's Timmy and I's responsibility to look down and say, okay, this money's in there, and this is where we could use some help with that, and come back to you with a request.
Right.
Tim, what did you want to say?
Yeah.
We know that we have two governors with two different beliefs on the MAT program, two people running for governor. If it goes away, this MAT grant, this may be a blessing to be able to fund our nurse down the road, to have this funding to support the MAT program we have going now if the grant ends.
Gentlemen, there's no dispute on this board as to where this money should be going. It should be going to the jail, priority on the jail and whatnot. So I mean, at some point, you're gonna come back with a particular program, and you're going to elicit our support for that program and get funding from an account that Monica sets up holding these funds. So I think.
What I'm hearing from you gentlemen is exactly what I was hoping to hear.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be blunt. I think that, I mean, we're already scraping to, for jail funding. To me, this check should reduce that budget by this amount. Because you are providing those services now out of your hide.
Well, he's gonna have to come back and show us how that's being done.
Oh,
because
yeah.
I think there are additional programs
Yeah.
that they might do if they had the funding, they don't have the funding,
Well,
so.
that's another subject.
I think that's
Yeah.
entirely up to you guys, but if, we have always struggled to find more money for the jail. If you can find that some of the existing budget can be taken care of with this money in the drug sense, I think Paul is absolutely right. Tell us how to do that.
Amen.
Yeah, tell us how to do it. So Monica, what direction do you need? Can you simply do that?
I think you gave me that direction just now. I think we can put it into the jail account and make it a separate line item so that we can track how the funds are expended. That's what-
I'm sorry, that's not what I was saying. The reason I don't want this going to jail account, I want this to be a standalone out of somebody else's account, is because the jail will have an opportunity to come to us and ask for these funds, but there might be another entity. It might be the new open door. It might be, I don't know. I'm just saying that if it's in the jail, it has to be spent on jail items, but if it's outside the jail and whatnot, under our control in a standalone account, then we can decide if we want to send it somewhere else other than the jail.
I'm almost thinking you're gonna treat it like you are with the ARPA funds.
Absolutely.
Money is there, sitting there. It's money that we had.
And we're telling you anecdotally that we're gonna prioritize in each of the jail, but it doesn't, I don't wanna.
How about this? I'm just trying to get it.
Well, I, before you do anything, Paul, I just need for Monica to feel comfortable.
I understand if that's what you want to do. It's just that we have no idea how much money we're going to be receiving.
And I don't know how to do your business, but I don't know if we really care. In other words, if you have a revenue account and as it comes in, stick it in there, and then you have a way to expend that out of that account.
Sure.
But it should be a
What's-
reserve account, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
is it a reserve account?
It'll be like he said, like the ARPA.
Yeah. because that's really what we're looking for. That's what I'm looking for.
Like the G account.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be a G account.
So would this, just so I can clarify this, and you have, does to approve the transfer of the opioid settlement money to a new opioid reserve account?
Yep.
Do it? Is it that simple?
That's fine, yep.
Now, can we craft something that basically says that all opioid settlement money will go into this account?
Yeah.
Do we have, right, in other words, all, not just this settlement money, but any check that comes in as part of the settlement. okay?
Yeah, I think my motion's that broad, because
Okay.
it says, this is what I got so far. I'm gonna move to approve the transfer of opioid settlement money to a new opioid reserve account, period.
And if you change money to monies, plural, I would,
Okay,
so that we know that we're talking about all.
and Monica, this is, don't be shy, do I need to add anything?
No, that sounds good.
And I will second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, aye.
Thank you for supporting that, John.
No, thank you. I think this is an important thing.
Absolutely.
I mean, we're hurting up there. and
It's not getting
what
any
that
better.
fun- Yeah,
We want to take a break before?
No, let's do that holiday schedule and then take a break. Do we have the holiday schedule?
yes.
Yep.
I meant to do this, but I did not. This is identical to last year's, as I remember. I didn't compare them. Is that,
Yes, it is.
is that, that's
Those
true?
are obviously different dates.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean,
but
it's the
it-
same 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 holidays. Nothing new.
Nothing new. No, because last year would have been the Juneteenth, but
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
voted that down.
So we're gonna bring
To
this
keep the day out
up
of
again,
Thanksgiving.
that I want Juneteenth on this list. It's a federal holiday, it's a state holiday, the courts are closed on that day, there's no reason why it shouldn't be on this list.
What is it?
So you're
Juneteenth.
introducing a
June
It's the
19th.
19th of June, I believe.
Well, so we're adding another holiday, and I'm not arguing about which one's more important, but there are some here that are not federal holidays, so we taking,
If you, the only one that, I mean, if you go into the list of holidays,
I mean, I wish I had this. I think a lot of it we're bound through our union agreements.
well, this is a non-union
Well,
employee.
yeah, but our practice is to treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
So,
When you do the new contracts, you change it. That includes.
so I'm making this motion. I'm gonna move to approve the 2023 holiday schedule as presented.
Second the motion.
Any other discussion?
I understand what you're saying, John. I had two things. First of all, is that I don't want to increase the amount of benefit time we have now. The biggest problem is that we have Mike has already been asked by the union rep to meet and discuss an upcoming contract that needs to be renewed, and you can bet your bippy that first thing on that list is going to be June 13th or 16th or whatever you call it.
19th, Juneteenth.
Juneteenth, and here we go. The cost countywide is going to be tens of thousands of dollars, and I can't support that.
So the motion is to approve this. Joe, are you offering an amendment? Is that what you're?
Well, I mean, motion is a standalone motion. I mean, if he doesn't agree with it, he can vote against it.
Or he could vote, or he could move to amend the motion. If he gets a second, but, my feeling is, this is what we've done. I'm not looking to change it. There's a real cost to increasing that. It's not just people getting a day off. Uh, I, that's why I move this. I think this is this is fair, it's,
Because, yeah, but you do have to understand though, that the non-union people, if we give them a day off, it doesn't cost additional to do that. There's this theoretical loss of productivity that work week because they're not
Yeah.
here, but the bottom line is that somehow they find a way to do 5 days worth of work in 4 days, it gets done. But when you apply this to dispatch, jail, law enforcement and whatnot, now you're talking about people who need to be replaced at an astronomical hourly rate. So that's where the problem comes in. So it's not the cost of giving it to non-union, it's the residual effect of the union contract.
that's my point, because our practice is to treat everybody the same.
I'd have to see what the costs were on the union side to see what it would really be for one day off, to be honest.
That makes you.
What if we get into
That makes you feel comfortable with this
union
proposal.
neg- so let's say we get into the union negotiations, and they're like, well, we want off that day.
Then we'll
And then,
we'll know.
then what are we gonna do? We can come back to this. and
Yeah,
add it
we
back in,
we
because
certainly can come back any day and revisit that any day of the year. Because the staff needs to know, everybody needs to know what they can anticipate, but
All right, well, I'll call the vote. All those in favor?
aye,
No.
2-1. All right. So we're gonna take a break.
Yep, I'm gonna take a break.
All right.
All right, we're gonna bring up the 2023 budget. And since we've had people waiting, we'll start with third party.
Well, are we, the BAC took action. Right?
Yeah, so
So that's what this calculation page is now based on that. Where is it your pleasure to go through this whole thing again? Is that what we're doing, or? Or are we going over their action?
we can review what they did.
Okay.
Well, meeting. Yeah. There's two or three things with this I'd like to talk about, without going through everybody's.
Go ahead.
First of all, for the 23 budget year, I would like us to zero out extension and the volunteer firefighters. Then go back through that entire list, figure out which ones that we do want to fund to what extent, and take those all from the community benefits account. We have 400, I don't have that figure, 426,000 over the LD. Yeah, for something, 426,000 over the LD. And I really think that should be our goal between transfers and reductions and new revenues, whatever. See how close we can get to that 426. And so for just the 23, I'm not suggesting that we do this in subsequent years, but this year to address that, I'd like to see us remove those. And then every one of these third-party recipients we want to fund for 23, that we consider taking all of those, except if we intend to fund any part of home, because that's housing issues, that we take that from ARPA.
Well, that fits under the definition.
Right, that's why, because if we,
So my contention is this, that's basically what the BAC did, with the exception of the two that you mentioned.
right, and I think John will tell us that his personal plan that he wanted to present to us basically left those two in the budget to be raised by taxation, but I'm just suggesting that we go a little farther than John's plan and we remove those, paid for with CBA and ARPA combination as it applies, and
I was thinking the same thing.
you will.
Yes,
Very
just
good.
because I know how much we had to cut.
Good lines,
And
St. John's.
we could have it all get funded through CBA this year. And then, like I've mentioned, I've got a proposal that we use a combination of some taxation and CBA to fund a future 2024.
Right. So John, to do that, it would take a unanimous vote of us because they voted third party with a supermajority.
Yeah.
So so it would take a motion, which I would make. I move that we zero out third party University of Maine Extension. We zero out to 72,000. We reduce the 72 to zero. That we reduce the Hancock County Volunteer Firefighters Association from 44,500 to zero.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, so, and then, I guess, before we vote on that, can you, John, you've sort of described what what your thoughts were. Could you outline those
Yeah.
just so everybody's on?
Well, so it's not gonna influence the 23 budget. It would be more for 24 when we come back to look at the idea of Department 17. In the future, in 2024, we would just have these two lines. They wouldn't necessarily even be in the third-party lines. We could create separate departments for University of Maine Extension and the Volunteer Firefighters Association. And we'd be funding them entirely through taxation.
Which used to be practice, right?
No.
Well, no, it's always always considered a donation.
The firefighters used to have their own department budget, but because we don't supervise, they took it out, made it.
Okay, that's what I had. That's what I had.
But we can still, it was just an opinion they had on the board that time, but if we want to make them a standalone department, which I think we should. Extension of standalone department.
Because we're
and then
obligated.
Raise that money.
Because we're obligated.
We're obligated to pay.
We're obligated for extension, some of them to extension, we're not obligated to Hancock County, but we do have a moral obligation. I mean, they provide a very valuable service to the county, so all of it.
And then what we would do, my idea was that we would, in 2024, we would have a line item. I would keep it as Department 17 for $35,000. Then that would be matched, whatever the budget committee returns back to us as approved. I'd suggest that we have it be $35,000. If they approve $35,000, we'll match that amount that they approve. And do that through CBA, so that we'd have a total, in this case, my example, of $70,000. At $70,000 after this time period, after we get through the budget, we know what our number's gonna be. We would have the parties apply for a grant. And
We when we had the last grant program, Paul. No,
We used to have
we have a criteria that we'd have to look over again, no, but we have a criteria for applying for the grant. And so that's,
that was just for CBA funds.
yeah, for
But it's
CBA
kind of
funds.
up to us when we decide we do it. We haven't done
So
it
what we're saying, what he's saying is that we would set a designated amount of money that third-party recipients could bid on by grant, could, file an application. And the only exception, not exception, but the only difference I'd have in opinion on Paul's plan is that we take and decide how much we're going to raise the budget. So if 35 is that number, that's fine. But then we supplement that number with a number from CBA so that when we get done,
Which is, it's one of its intentions.
right, when we get done, we'll have a number that we can put out there to third-party recipients. Say, we've raised $100,000, file applications for that.
So what about, okay, so I, that makes a lot of sense.
That's the same as I was saying.
Yeah,
I thought it was even 35.
Well, we'd match it.
With something.
Yeah.
Right, we'd figure out what the match would, what the supplement would be.
but why not take, while we can, I mean, it's not a good go forward strategy, but why not use ARPA?
Because
For what?
then it would have to meet all the ARPA requirements.
You
Well,
can't
some
do,
of them could,
Yeah,
like home, like volunteer fire, well, I'd have to bounce that, but in my mind, that. There are some here that clearly could be done through ARPA.
but clearly, I think there was some that probably if you,
Well, home, to me, that's clear.
and we've said all along that, we've said this year that that's coming out of ARPA, that may come out of ARPA for another year. But ARPA's not gonna always be there. John is proposing
I'm
something.
trying to look at something like for the farther out,
Right.
we're still doing,
Right,
we're
Oh, I
limiting
totally
the
agree.
exposure to taxation, which everybody seems to have the problem with it, concern for, especially when we have budgets that are so over. But we're kind of marrying the two, trying to kind of create a balance so we can extend out the program longer by matching it with CBA and taxation to kind of come up with a longer range plan.
and I think if we let the public know that that is a long-range plan, they get into the routine of how they're going to access those funds in the future. So,
Okay, so if we vote on this motion. Okay, so there's a motion and a second on the floor. If you vote for this, what we've done, and it takes all three of us to do that. How are we gonna fund through that process that you just outlined?
Not these this year. We're just gonna, these, whatever we come up with our solution, it's all gonna come out of community benefits.
and we'll have to make another vote
That'll be a
to,
separate.
right, to identify what we want to pay out of CBA towards third-party recipients. Now, that really isn't a budget item, but I think it is an item that we should be talking about today. So, I mean, it's not going to affect the budget. But I think the third-party recipients, I think ought to understand and know that what their status is with regards, because right now, they've been defunded zero if this motion passes.
Well, these have, the others have already.
Yeah, they've already.
Right, and they need to know how, it's just, yeah, okay.
So, okay, the other thing that was eye-opening to me, and I wish I had brought it, was what Fred Erlenbach read to us concerning LD1, and what, why you can exceed it, and what things you can't exceed it with, and that was pretty eye-opening to me. I have not, I mean, I knew it existed, but I didn't know it existed to that detail. So, that's another reason I think that we need to take action on this and then work on shaving this a little more. And, I think there's some room, and as Julie outlined in deeds, a little bit, and there may even be some in the jail. I don't know what that number, that one's a little harder to put your finger on.
Well, let's move forward. I'm gonna call a vote. All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
So,
Excuse me, I'm not sure if now is appropriate, but I did just want to clarify, there are 5 representatives from Maine Extension here, and what I think I'm hearing you all saying is to move our budget out of the third-party requests and to be a line item in another budget. I'm just wondering if you can clarify a little bit. It's a little bit hard to follow what exactly you're
For
voting
this
on.
year, we're gonna end up funding the extension through our community benefits fund rather than it go through taxation. And the proposal that I've said is that going forward in 2024, the extension and the Volunteer Fire Association will get 100% funded through taxation. And then the nonprofits that have been currently in Department 17 will be applying for a grant that will end up happening, I imagine, it'll end up happening in late December or January.
So what happens is the extension and the firefighters will have their own standalone department. You look just like probate, like the sheriff and everything. So you'll have your own budget, and that amount will be raised by taxation. So you won't be in the third-party recipient like you are now. B, you won't be having to apply for grant money. The money and the amount we raise for you will be a discussion with regards to the budget. Through
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, I understand. Thank you. This is something we've been talking about for years. So, and just for the record, there are some counties who do operate like this. So this is not uncommon across the state. Some are in third parties, some are through taxation. I just want to give our extension team, if anybody has any clarifying questions for them before we go, if some of our board members wanted to ask Jeff.
Good morning, Commissioners. It's Jeff Milliken in Blue Hill. I'm on the association board. And I'm just wanting to know who we go to for taxation to see to it that the budget request will be granted. And if there's a feedback period where you all or whoever the funding agency will be would let us know what we're going to receive, what will be that process?
You'll get a notification just like any of the departments do here at the county to provide us their budget. And then you'll come on the day that your department's being presented and we'll go over that budget and make our decision on it.
Your process for you really won't
It's not
change.
gonna change.
It's really the clerical aspect on our side. So instead of you applying for third-party recipient funds, you're gonna be simply submitting a request for us to raise a certain amount of money in support of your organization. And just like you do now.
Okay, yes, and just one more, sorry for clarifying again, but this change will go into effect 2024. But for now, were you saying in 2023, where will our funding come from this year?
We're gonna pay it out of our community benefits funds that we receive for the windmills.
And hopefully, we're gonna do that this morning.
Yeah,
We're
we're
going
gonna
to
do
vote to approve payment of other third-party recipients from the CPA funds, from a community benefits account.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much for clarifying, for understanding. I'm looking at Sue. Do you have any questions about payment or anything? She's the one who deals with that. Oh, you're muted, Sue.
And those are all subsequent votes that are gonna take place.
Yes.
Okay, yeah, that clarification was great. I heard you guys say that you were gonna offer the 35,000 and then try to do a matching. And that would be 70,000. And I know our request was for 72, and I was just checking on that.
Excuse me, I don't want to interrupt, but you're talking about everybody, almost everybody else in third-party recipients. The extension is not subject to that 35 and 70,000. You people are going to have a standalone department. You will come back to us with this, if this had been 24, you would have come back to us and said, we'd like to have $72,000. So you would have made that request and we would have deliberated on your request as a standalone department. You're not filing an application for grant monies, okay?
Yes. Great.
All right,
Yeah.
you understand that?
Yes.
Yes, thank you for clarifying, because it is a change, but like we said, this is not uncommon across the state and something that, since I've been around for 5 or 6 years, we have all been talking about for a long time. So this is a good plan. Thank you for that.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so we've covered the.
If I may also for a moment, because there's a number of people here who have appeared in support of Down East Restorative Justice.
We're going to get back to that in a minute.
Well, I guess my question is the reason that we actually all came today is that we were sent a link of a meeting back on October 19, where you had a number of questions and comments that you were asking us to respond to, which is why we showed up today. So this is kind of news that you're dissolving the third party questionnaire. And I guess I do have questions about how a program, the third party questionnaire, which had a designated budget, which had folks that applied for it, went through the whole process with you and with the budget advisory committee, can just be dissolved in this matter after after so many of us have both applied and tried to meet your requirements and answer your questions.
Because we had already crafted a way to continue to pay third-party recipients, but from another non-budget source. And that's going to be the process we're going to go through this morning. At some point, how do we compensate third-party requests from what source outside the budget? So if you just give us a couple minutes, we're going to go right to restorative justice as part of the third-party recipients who have been zeroed out and talk about how much, if any, we're going to fund for that and where it's going to come from. Okay?
And I want to be blunt, because you just stated that, it was somewhat of a surprise. Back when you first came to us, we outlined what meetings were going, when we needed things and what meetings that you should be present at. And you didn't. In fact, at the first budget advisory committee, you said that it was unclear what information we were requesting. At the meeting, when you came to us, we answered your question 3 times. I even asked you whether you understood what was required, and you said yes 3 times. So, you know, I didn't appreciate this committee being thrown under the bus. You know, you're asking for public funds. You should be attending all those meetings.
And as far as your,
Well-
I heard you right, you said something about leaked, a video. Nobody leaked that. We instructed our staff to be sure that the restorative justice got a copy and had available to them the discussion that we had with the Budget Advisory Committee, so they would be prepared for today, because we were going to be putting that back on.
And you should have been.
I'm sorry, I didn't say the word leaked. I don't know if there's a problem, if there's a problem with,
Link.
I don't know if there's a problem with my microphone. I didn't say the word leaked. I said I was given the link, LIKN.
Yep, and
I was
apologize.
given the link to the video, is what I said. I didn't use the word
Okay. I'm glad you clarified that.
Yeah,
because
thank
that- I
okay,
can-
thank you. Sorry. And and also just for clarification too, is, you know, there are recordings of all our minutes, and we could have been more on the ball with getting you the budget information you were wanting. But it was also very clear that we were told there was no rush. We just needed it for the next commissioners meeting. On the website, the next commissioners meeting was listed as October 2nd. We know that you periodically have meetings in the middle, and I will take that responsibility. I could have double checked on that. But it was also very clear, as I said, that all our meetings are recorded, right? So any of this we can also all go back and look over, though I don't know that that matters much moving forward.
So
thank you.
maybe this is a great time. We've been talking 2 minutes. Let's move on to whether or not we're going to fund any portion of the restorative justice request. If so, how much and where it's going to come from? Can we do that now?
So one thing I think you should make sure that they're aware of, and maybe they do, that at the final meeting of the BAC, because of the amount we were over budget, essentially all the third-party requests were zeroed out, except for the Volunteer Fire Association and the Humane Extension. They left those in place. We just removed those back out. They also understood that we would be reviewing these again to fund them through the CBA funds. All right. So how would you like to proceed?
Well, I'd like to proceed with a discussion on the request from restorative justice for the amount of what was approved from the budget committee, and then up to 19,400, got reduced to 0. And I'd like to have a discussion on how much, if any of that, we're going to fund from community benefits account.
So your proposal is take each one.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to identify that one because, you know, we all know that there's a problem with that one.
Yeah.
There is a problem on how much, if any, of the funding we want to raise or apply for CBA for restorative justice. So I might as well start that discussion if you don't mind, because I got to tell you folks that third-party recipients have always been a thorn in the side of the commissioners, because it's difficult to say no to these worthy causes. And they come to us with very compelling arguments as to why we shouldn't give them money. You know, and the one I use is that if ASPCA came in here and wanted a donation, they could make a case that would tug at your heartstrings for funding. Because, and nobody comes in with an objective look at any of these people to say, you know, despite everything they've said, you really need to look at this, you need to look at that, you need to understand this about this organization. Nobody says that, and so a lot of these get funded. Restorative justice, unfortunately, folks, for you, restorative justice is not being supported by some of your largest area law enforcement agencies. Now, I'm not going to speculate why, but 3 of them that were contacted basically said, we're not going to go public with our comments, but we will tell you anecdotally that we cannot support, and nor do we feel that they're providing a valuable service. Now, folks, here we are looking at third-party recipients, and nobody says anything, adverse about these organizations, and suddenly we have 3 law enforcement agencies who cannot support the county funding these. And for me, that is huge. That is huge. And for that reason, I'm having serious reservations about whether or not we want to devote county tax money to an organization who's supposed to be assisting law enforcement, and yet law enforcement can't support the work of this organization. So I'm going to tell you, folks, I'm sitting here today saying that I'm going to vote for 0 money for restorative justice.
Well, it's already at 0.
And
Somebody would have to make a motion to fund it.
right, so that's what I'm saying. I'm supporting the Budget Advisory Committee's recommendation for 0 funding. John, you're running this, so you can decide who you want to have talk.
Well, I think we should give them a chance to respond to what you said about the thoughts on their support or lack of support within law enforcement. So I'd like to have somebody respond to that over in the restorative justice side of it.
Well, can you come to the right here to the microphone? Thank you.
I suppose there are also folks in law enforcement who are in support of us. In the past, we've had written letters. And unfortunately, with both the timeline and I guess the political environment right now, it seems like the law enforcement who's opposed and the law enforcement who's in favor, nobody's going to come forward, nobody's going to put anything in writing. It puts us in a very awkward position when you can't at least meet face to face, even if it was a closed door meeting, right? If we could talk with the people who are opposed to our work, the whole point of restorative justice work is to foster communication, to foster community ties. Clearly, something isn't working with those particular law enforcement agencies, and they may have very valid concerns about us. They may have misinformation about us. I don't know what the specific issues are, and it is difficult with this process and with this timing to have to suddenly swallow going from, oh, everything in the beginning of the process looked like, okay, we're going to get about what our funding request was, and we reasoned through why we thought that was a reasonable amount. And historically, we have been funded, thank you very much, by this commission. And so I'm not sure how to respond to that directly without having that kind of chance.
I'd like, you make a great point, and that's why I think that I'm not questioning any programs or that, but the point is that I think coming to the county, you're too far removed. You know, I think that there are probably some law enforcement agencies that support it. There are obviously schools that support it. You have letters last year and this year that support it. That's where I think the funding should go. For us, the county funding you means that we're taking from, all we're doing is taking money from municipalities and our and passing it through to you. So it's forced giving on their part. So I don't know if I've
I understand that, and
I think you make a great point, and I think that your case should be made closer to home, because I think that's where it belongs. You know, you have, it sounds like you're doing great work in schools. You know, that's where that funding should come from, because they're the one receiving the benefits.
Well, unfortunately, though, sometimes the lines are much blurrier in terms of the type of work that we do. If we get a case, like one of our DOC, we're working with a juvenile corrections officer type case with multiple youths involved. Those youths, that it's not necessarily the school's issue that they're dealing with, right? It's our corrections funding. But then there's also all the various community members and people who are supporting from different towns who come in. We've got trained facilitators. I mean, we're all of us except for one person are all volunteers, right? Tara and I are here today as volunteer board members because we believe in the work that we do. And I wish it was easy to kind of like carve out and make that value proposition to the individual police department and the individual school. And I think as we evolve as an organization, we are already diversifying our funding. I mean, we got a $15,000 private donation and we're getting more private donations. We are on better financial footing than we have ever historically been as an organization, assuming that we do get something from you all. But our expenses are also higher than they've ever been because this is our first year as our own nonprofit. And I have to say that was an enormous amount of work trying to figure out how to get insured as a mentoring organization. It is almost impossible to do community mentoring work where you just expose youth who are in difficult situations in life to community members who have been thoroughly vetted and let them spend time together just to be with one another, to see how other people live their lives and have somebody else to talk to. It's very difficult to do some of the things that we are doing. And that's why we do appreciate your time and your consideration to get some level of funding. And to be honest with you, I'm new here. This whole process is unfamiliar to me, and it does sound like, maybe if we had understood the funding issues a little bit better, I don't know if there is a way to construe ARPA money. I haven't read up on this, what the community fund looks like. I don't know if there's a way to kind of meet in the middle in terms of how we frame our work or what part of our work fits your funding needs.
But see, for me, it isn't the funding source that's the problem. It's the service area and the agencies that you're supposed to have an intimate relationship with. Now, given my background and whatnot, I still have a lot of close contacts in the law enforcement community. So when I sit down and I talk to some of these people that I have known for 20, 30 years, I can trust what they say. They're very candid about what they say. And so it's very believable. And when they tell me that, I mean, one of them says after one of these kids went through the program, I had a chance to talk to him later, and then the kid said, that's a joke. He said, you know what to say, you know what to do, just do it and they'll let you go free. And so that kid wasn't impressed. And that agency wasn't impressed either with the work. And so when I hear that, it doesn't make any difference where the money comes from. It's now we're hearing adverse reports from somebody asking us for this money. And quite honestly, it's a hell of a hole. And few people want to dig your way out of it. You've got to have to go back to your law enforcement community and sit down with it. One of them said, I don't remember anybody ever coming in and sitting down and telling us what their program's all about. Anecdotally, you may have talked to officers, but the administration in that department has never seen anybody from restorative justice. So you may be so busy providing the service, you're forgetting who your supporters should be. And maybe that you got to get back to do that, because right now your supporters can't support the people you need supporting you are not supporting you.
Well, it's a crazy time to get some of our supporters out right now because, I mean, we only got an understanding of the zeroing out of the budget, and we got the link to that video.
Thank you.
Fairly late in the game, and it's an election year, and so getting an ADA or a DA or a JCCO or getting law enforcement to come out here on our behalf, we try. But again, it's kind of a tiny.
I just want to say that we do have a JCCO here online. Sorry, I'm just letting you know.
Well, then maybe we let them talk.
I also would like to make a comment on this. I just don't want to be skipped over. I'm happy to let whoever go next, but I would like to share on this.
Sit down and let them
Go right ahead.
say their piece.
Who would
you'd like to hear from next?
Can I have,
I can't see the name.
yeah, I can't read the names
Robin
unfortunately.
Goff Or
Is it Robin?
Robin, go ahead. You had a comment?
Thank you so much for letting me make a comment on this. I will introduce myself. My name is Robin Goff. I had hoped to be there in person today. I have a little cold, as you can hear, so I apologize that I'm not, but I'm a Hancock County resident. I've lived here for 25, 30 years. I own a home in Ellsworth, and I'm raising 2 children in this community. I have a senior and a 6th grader. Outside that lens, professionally, I work for Volunteers of America. I'm the Director of Community Justice, overseeing our corrections work in Waldo County and Knox County. Speaking from that lens, although I'm showing up as a community member, the organization I work for has been contracted by the Waldo County Sheriff's Office for the last 12 years. And I've worked with them for the last 9 years. And Restorative Justice Project Maine has been a partner to Volunteers of America and Waldo County Sheriff's Office for that 12 years. We operate the Reentry Center in Belfast, among other community-based programs, post-release case management. We have a diversion program where we use community liaisons, and we have the LEAD program as well there. I did watch the link of the meeting that you all had, maybe the 19th, I think is what people are referring to, and just wanted to offer a couple of comments on that. And it was brought up here again today around a program participant of restorative justice being interviewed by a law enforcement, and that person saying that, you know, restorative justice was a joke and they were just telling them what they wanted to hear. I think we also have to consider the context of that conversation, in that that individual was then speaking with law enforcement. And it's quite possible they were just telling law enforcement what they wanted to hear as well. In terms of recidivism, because I know it's been brought up, I just want to say that Maine does not have one definition of recidivism. And that kind of is a problem, because you can't really compare things like apples to oranges. And what I mean by that is Maine DOC puts out a recidivism report annually, and they factor in low risk offenders and high risk offenders, which will drive the recidivism rate down when you factor in low risk offenders to that. I'm curious if Ellsworth or and the city's involvement with Hancock County Jail, does this county even have a definition of recidivism? Has a recidivism report been done? And then looking at, you know, maybe the programs across that, like restorative justice, and how those programs might factor into reducing things like that. I have very close friends and partners and colleagues in law enforcement. I do not want to diminish the work that they do. I have a lot of respect for law enforcement, and I do think some people need to be incarcerated depending upon what crimes are committed. But I also believe that incarceration ultimately does not work or solve the problem. And if it did, you know, we wouldn't see high rates of recidivism occurring again and again. In terms of law enforcement or the DA's office not supporting Down East restorative justice, when I'm looking at all the information and seeing that Down East Restorative Justice has a contract with Maine Department of Corrections, that does tell me that they support the work that they're doing. And if some of the referrals that Down East Restorative Justice has gotten have come from the DA's office, that also is an indicator to me that there is some support there. What I will say that it also in my work, because we also accept referrals and kind of diversion and deflection work from incarcerating people. And when that happens, it relieves the burden off of the district attorney's office or off of law enforcement when alternative pathways are presented. And the cost of incarceration annually, from one individual of taxpayer dollars is, astronomical. And when I think about the modest request that Down East Restorative Justice is asking for to continue some of their work and continue to put together not just anecdotal stories, but data to support it. I think if it zeroes out personal opinion as a Hancock County resident and mother of 2 children in this community, I think, in my opinion, zeroing it out is heading in the wrong direction. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have, but also don't want to take up too much time. Thank you.
John?
Yes, I am John Bennett, Juvenile Community Corrections Officer in Hancock County. I've been doing this about 18 years. I've been working with the Restorative Justice Program since their inception. So I make a lot of referrals to them. And I just want to say I have no complaints. I was a little surprised when I heard the comment that there was, well, maybe I shouldn't have been, but there were some law enforcement folks that maybe weren't impressed with the program. To be blunt, I've been hearing for 18 years that there are some law enforcement that aren't impressed with how the juvenile system does its work. It can get frustrating at times. People sometimes think we're too lenient, but the research has shown that the more we get a kid involved in our system, the higher the recidivism is. Now, obviously, sometimes, kids are going to make that happen themselves, but it's been a while since I've seen a law enforcement person participating in the restorative justice program. We've had some sit in on our meetings, what we call circles, and I think every time we've come away, they've been impressed. So it's a little frustrating, to be honest, to hear, not being able to speak to whoever it is that's saying that they don't think the program is doing a good job, and they're basing that off 1 or 2 people or juveniles that have been through the system. And for them to say, all we had to do is say what they wanted to hear and do that. You can say the exact same thing about probation. Kids go into the courtroom and they tell the judge what it is that they want to hear. They know, they toe the line, they do what they're supposed to do. And so I don't see how that points to restorative justice not being on the same level as any other intervention. Sure, it doesn't work for every kid. Nothing does. If it did, we'd be doing it. But from my experience, I've seen it be very effective. And I know recidivism has come up. I don't have any hard numbers for you. And like Robin said, Mr. Clark, you know better than anybody else, recidivism is a very fluid thing. I mean, depending how you define it. I've had some kids reoffend after going through the program, and I don't think it's fair, and I don't think it'd be fair of any program to say that they failed because the kid reoffended. We're talking about human beings, we're talking about adolescents. They don't always get it right away. So I would say that, what they do learn in the restorative justice program, maybe they aren't able to grasp it and I'll say the word fix them right away. I believe, and maybe I'm just being really optimistic, I believe they get something from it each time, and eventually it will be of a benefit. So if you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I have a quick question. I'm not sure who would answer it best for me. I'd also just say that when we do talk with you, we'll try to keep the comments to about 3 minutes or so, just because I don't know how long it's going to take for us to go through everybody. But I did want to ask, so when I was looking through the materials, I see, that there seems to be activity at the George Stevens Academy, Mountain View School, Deer Isle, Stonington, Bucksport. I wasn't sure exactly what level of activity is happening in Ellsworth and Mount Desert, just since they're some of the larger schools.
Yes, I can say, I know that Mount Desert has their own restorative justice process, and I've worked with that before with them. Ellsworth has been a little reluctant to get on board. So I make referrals when kids are charged with offenses. So in order for them to come into my realm, they have to have a pending offense. And that's when I can get restorative justice involved. What our hope is, and some of the reasons why I know they're looking for funds outside of just DOC, is that they would like to be able to take referrals directly from schools or, directly from police departments. So as to answer your question, I guess, yeah, I mean, we're doing a lot of work with kids in the Ellsworth MDI area, but it is after they've been charged with offenses. Like I said, for a couple of different reasons.
Okay, thank you.
I can speak more to that as well.
Yeah, why don't you come on up?
Sure.
What's your name again?
I'm Tara Young, and I've been working with Ellsworth and MBI schools with regard to restorative justice for quite a while. I've been doing prevention in the area for over 20 years. Different kinds of prevention work. Right now I work mostly in substance prevention work with youth, and I'm also on the board of Down East Restorative Justice. I also have an MBA, and I've read the research, and I know that prevention, all kinds of prevention, saves us money in the long run. And, we're talking about cost overruns in the jail, substance prevention, youth, youth activities, and restorative justice is going to save us a lot of money in the long run. When we do these interventions early, kids get a lot out of it. We also do shoplifting for adults as well, to prevent people from ending up in jail. So there's a lot of things that we can do, that whether it's just primary prevention work in schools, all the way up through having a circle to make things as right as possible after a shoplifting or some sort of mischief, things like that. Preventing people from ending up in the system, whether they're youth or adults, saves us a lot of money in the long run.
Thank you. There, 2 years ago, I think it was, that we had a discussion with restorative justice that Hancock County does not want to be the sole primary financial resource for them, and that they needed to get out there to the community, and they need to get more community support so that we're not assessing the taxpayers a donation to your organization, which is what we're doing. You stop and think about it. If you're a taxpayer in the county of Hancock, and I'm saying to you, Mr. Taxpayer, restorative justice would like to thank you because I took some of your money and gave it to them to support their organization. I mean, that sounds kind of fuzzy, doesn't it? I mean,
I don't think so at all.
well, anyways, I've had people say, who are you to tell me where I got to spend my money, where I got to donate my money, but, yeah. But maybe we don't quite understand the implications here, whatnot, but at the time we're telling you to branch out, reduce your request to us and show us that you can support yourself with community support. Then we find out that you're forming your own 401(c) or 501(c)(3), whatever it is. You're separating from your parent company, which was Waldo, Knox County, or something like that, and lost that whatever financial support they might have been able to give you.
We actually increased our financial support by separating from them.
And how
We're
did that,
doing exactly what.
how did that happen?
Because we got our own DOC contract.
Yeah, they have an MD for $30,000, correct?
So we have branched out, we've done everything we've asked, but we're really on a precipice. We've also been doing more work. We've been seeing a lot more school activity. We've been doing a lot more primary prevention. It's like saying we shouldn't get our teeth looked at by the dentist and then, 3 years later having to pay for cavities and bridges. If we do this primary prevention work, we're saving a lot of money in other areas.
Yeah. I think another comment that bothered me is that somebody in your organization this year said that they want to become more autonomous. They don't want to be subject to the courts. They don't want to be subject to the Department of Corrections. They want to be able to run their organization with their mission in mind and their goals in mind without being told how to do that from others. And
Well, I think we wanted to be more autonomous from other counties. We wanted to be more autonomous in this county. I've never heard any discussion about being autonomous
that
from the
was the
court.
last time they were here talking to us, that comment was made. And I said to them, I said, wait a minute, you can't do that. You are peri-correctional. I mean, you're doing the work of probation pro.
Oh, you're talking about with regard to community support.
I don't know what
We
they
do
were
need
talking
community
about.
support.
Yeah.
No, I understand what you're saying. We're not saying that we don't want to be.
And that's the other point too, is that the work you're doing is in support of corrections, really. the corrections and the courts. And first of all, John Bennett, I know that man has a caseload that's difficult for he and every other probation parole officer to handle. They've always been that way. But, and I have to wonder, how easy is it to support your organization when you know every case you take is one less that they don't have to handle and spend their time dedicated to the remainder of those? And so
He's still involved with our cases when we take a case.
They what?
He remains involved.
Well, I know, but it doesn't run through the probation system. It doesn't run through that. The district attorney's office is the same way. For every case that you handle, they don't have to prosecute. Their attorneys can work on other cases. And so, you know, you tend to come with a certain amount of support simply because you're doing somebody else's work.
Well, as a community member, wouldn't you want your district attorney focusing more on a rape or a murder or something very serious like that than a shoplifting case?
Mhm.
I certainly would. I have children in this community. I would like it to be safe.
But
I think that's a very good utilization of their resources to be focusing on the more serious crimes, and we can use a community process to focus on shoplifting or trespassing or vandalism.
It's just like settling cases out of court.
Exactly.
I mean, you couldn't you couldn't try all the cases. And do we really want to try a case for a kid that
And
breaks
instead of,
somebody's window or vandalizes somebody's car? Well, some cases maybe would have to, but if there's another way.
and instead of
that's
just
another whole issue, John. I'm not going to get into that.
Instead of just dropping the issue, we actually make people sit down and hear the damage that they've done and try to make it as right as possible and come up with a solution to fixing the problem. And that really helps to reduce recidivism. It keeps people connected with their community. And it's been shown through many studies that this works, that it prevents future problems. It keeps them employed. We've had kids be able to join the military. I served in the armed forces for 27 years. And, you know, I know that you can't get in when you've had some of these criminal records. If they can make this right and not have that charge, and then we've had at least 2 go on to serve in the Army. At least 2 of our kids would not have had that opportunity to serve their country. And I'm really proud of that. As a veteran, that makes me like really excited that those kids got the same opportunity that I had.
I'm gonna hold off for just a second. I can't quite read the gentleman on the top left's name. Is it Paul?
Phil Roberts, Roy Curtis.
Okay. Phil, I know you've been waiting.
It's all right.
Can I have you speak for 3 minutes for me?
Yeah, here it is a brief statement, but I'd like to read to you what I prepared last night in regards to restorative justice, but just let me submit. I'm in total support of the restorative justice program in Hancock County. I've been a volunteer mentor in the program for over 2 years. I have found the training, management, and program leadership to be comprehensive and excellent. The opening circle the restorative justice program implements is a unique and effective method of commencing each case. The opening circle provides a fair and safe format where the youth offender meets face-to-face with the person that they have harmed. The circle affords all participants the opportunity to voice their feelings, address issues, and to propose a constructive repair agreement. And that repair agreement is vital in the whole process. And I think that can be related in a court case to what happens. In my experience and oversight of fulfilling the repair agreement, I have seen the integral parts, restitution, community service, and a full-on mentoring program by a trained adult. Ensures the youth offender sees every aspect of the harm that they have done, and in turn finds true empathy and expresses remorse. As the program moves forward from the opening circle, the youth offender is responsible for meeting weekly, in person, or on the phone with the mentor to discuss and agree that milestones in the repair agreement are met. The restorative justice program provides opportunities for follow-on update circles where participants can gain additional facts and adjustments can be made. At the agreed upon deadline for completion of the process, a closing circle is conducted. At this circle, everyone involved, youth, parents, court, law enforcement, and the people harmed are advised of the result of the repair agreement. and again have a voice in the program. As an organization whose mission is accomplished by a majority of trained volunteers, the cost of the restorative justice program to the taxpayer is very small. As a parent, former foster parent, grandparent, and 40 years plus of career with the Department of the Army, I bring a wealth of experience to the program. My career involved working with soldiers, sailors, airmen of all ranks. Some make errors in judgments and some commit crimes. There were formalized processes in the Uniform Code of Military Justice to address these issues. In civilian code, there is different formalized ways to address errors in judgments, resulting in crimes or rule breaking by our youth. The restorative justice program is one of those ways. As in any process, the restorative justice program is not always successful. When the youth repeatedly does not abide by the repair agreement, including stipulations, requirements, and deadlines, the youth is referred back to the originating entity, whether it be a court or a school or law enforcement that we derive the case from. I truly see the restorative justice program as a unique formula for success and resolutions for all involved. The youth offender agrees to the program and voluntarily hints they have invested in the program and are afforded the opportunity to see their offense from various angles and hopefully do not become a repeat offender. The person harmed gets a firsthand look and are participants in the process of justice and restitution in their case. The overburdened court system has a partner in the restorative justice program to relieve the courts of some cases. I know there is no guarantee in any program, but my experience in the RJP and other programs where community members take an active role and sometimes feel passionate about it, good does result from that. Thank you.
Just to reel this in a little bit.
Yep.
PAC brought us a recommendation. It's at 0 right now. Somebody needs to make
I make a motion that we fund restorative justice for $15,000 out of community benefits funds. Hearing none, the motion fails for lack of a second.
And again, for me, this isn't about your programs, because I think you do some very worthwhile things. It's where it comes from. And, you know, the folks that I have heard from have not belittled your programs. Not one. What they've questioned is that they've questioned where it's coming from. And that is my objection here. It has nothing to do with your programs. I know you're doing some good things. We've got letters this year and last year. So.
I'm disappointed that you haven't brought law enforcement in here this morning. Now, I can tell you, I know you said something about nobody wants to stand up, but we have an unfortunate situation here a year or so ago or whatnot, where the sheriff was having a disagreement with a Healthy Acadia over Black Lives Matter. And I don't want to resurrect that whole problem, but I can tell you that anyone that stood up in support of that got away with it. But if you tried to say anything adverse and whatnot, you were chastised and they wanted you to resign. And so getting support, getting opposition to this would be difficult. The chiefs have already said, we don't want to come, we're not going public. But getting support for this should have been fairly easy. And if a department, pardon?
We heard the same thing, that they weren't willing to come and support because they were worried about how that would, because they didn't perceive there was much support with the commissioners.
We are not at all a political organization, but unfortunately, the world that we live in becomes political, yeah.
That's the reality.
And we understand that.
I mean, is there a way to put this to the people of Hancock County? Can we collect petitions to have a resolution to become a budget item for the county if the people of the county support this? I don't know how this all works. I don't know.
Well, there's no statutory provision for that kind of a process.
Can I ask a question? If somebody was making a motion to fund the $15,000 out of community funds and there wasn't a second, sounds like there's money in those community funds. Where will those be redirected? If not funded to Down East Restorative Justice, just as a, Ellsworth resident, taxpayer, raising children here. I'm just curious as to where those community funds will be allocated.
We don't have any requirements to use the funds, like there's no particular requirement. We use them for different items that come up during the course of the year. Like I said, the idea is that next year in the 24 budget, a portion of the funds for third parties would actually come out of the community benefits funds rather than put more funds on the taxpayers for the nonprofits. So it'd be kind of a 50% comp.
And the other comment is we are facing a 11.8 or 11.9 increase in our county assessment. And the LD language, as I read it, I understand why the BAC took not only you, but everybody out of this, because they had a hard time, reading that definition of why you can have an increase. But this is a tough budget year. 11.9 is not a small number.
Do you believe there will be funds remaining in that community budget fund through the coming year? Or are you gonna allocate pretty much everything that's in that?
No, there'll be funds left in there. There's a carrying amount that's always in there.
So you describe it as like a hole that we're in because of the oppositional. What would it take if we blue skied this, if we were to come back to you at a later date, in a month, in 2 months, in 3 months? Is there any argument that we can make to receive some of that community funding?
Well, I'll tell you that because we're using community benefit monies to support third-party recipients, that means it doesn't get created in the budget, which must be finalized by December 15th. So if you came back May 1st with a presentation that impressed us that you were getting good community and law enforcement support to the point of where we said, all right, let's give them something in support of that, community benefit money is sitting there waiting to be spent. So the answer to your question is yes. If we don't fund you today because everybody else gets funded, or whoever does get funded comes out of a standalone account that's not associated to the budget, that can be appropriated and approved and spent at any time during the budget year. Okay? I want to make a motion. And I'm going to move that Special Children's Friends be awarded $5,300. University of Maine University of Maine Extension be awarded $72,000. Soil and Water Conservation District be awarded $20,000. Next Step be awarded $95,000.
90,000.
What?
9,000.
9,000, what did I say, 90? Wouldn't they love to have that? 9,000. Hancock County Planning Commission be awarded $16,500. That aggregate all be taken from the community benefits account. That's my motion.
Good morning. May I have my 3 minutes?
What about firefighters?
Wait a minute, I think I missed it. Just one second. Yeah, I'm gonna add, no, I want to take firefighters separate.
Okay.
All right. Sir, go ahead. I'm not sure.
With all due respect, commissioners, I just want to make sure that I appreciate you want to move this meeting along, but I feel somewhat obligated to at least speak on behalf of the Department of Corrections. I appreciate John Bennett as the Hancock County representative and JCCO and law enforcement officer speaking on behalf of his experience with Down East Restorative Justice. But I just want to say at a higher level, the Department of Corrections invests over $1 million a year in restorative practices. We've hired a restorative coordinator within our department so that we can modify our own practices, our own policies to be more restorative. Heck, our own mission statement right now is very much riddled with restorative language. We are at a point, gentlemen, where our legislature has put a timetable on our juvenile detention facility, Long Creek Youth Development Center. We need to support our communities. We need to support the children in our communities. And one of the commissioners said, Down East Restorative Justice supports courts and corrections. I don't disagree with that, but I think they mostly support the communities that these kids live in. I saw Scott Kane earlier stand up. Scott, you and I met each other about 20 years ago at Camp Postcard. That experience inspired me to work in a department to help kids. Because those kids that went to Camp Postcard, they all came from really, really challenging home environments. They all came from places where they needed positive natural supports. And we provided that to them as law enforcement agents at that camp. Thank you, Scott, for doing that and being part of that for so many years. I'm going to tell you that the biggest risk factor that the youth in our communities face these days is the lack of people who care about them. And I get it. When you say caring, it's not necessarily, it's warm and fuzzy, folks. It's not necessarily what corrections is all about, but it's what we need to be about. And I'm going to tell you that these kids in our communities are going to continue to be a threat, and they're going to continue to hurt folks and cause harm unless the community members are given the opportunity to step up and support them, wrap their arms around them, and care about them, because that's what they need. I get it, folks. That's not necessarily what police officers want to hear, law enforcement officers want to hear. Corrections is the most challenging entity to try to instill restorative principles in. I've been doing it for 20 years. And if none of you have ever sat through a circle that these folks are doing with the victims and with the parents and with the kids, I would encourage you, before you vote on anything, that you volunteer yourself to be a community member at one of these circles, because it's going to blow your mind what really happens there. Now, I get it that I work with budgets all the time. But I'm going to tell you right now that the biggest challenge that we have right now facing us in regards to juvenile justice in this state is that we have to support our communities knowing that Long Creek's not going to be there. And that's fine, because, frankly, if you want numbers, if you want recidivism, go to the Office of Juvenile Justice and Delinquency Prevention and look at their numbers. We know that as soon as a kid steps foot in a courtroom, we know as soon as a kid steps foot in a detention facility, their risk of reoffending goes through the roof. The last data I'll share with you today is that 80% of the kids that get charged in this state never appear in court. We're very proud of that. Of those 80%, 90% we never see again. So there is a 10% group that we work pretty hard with. But I just want to share with you that the restorative practitioners in this state, and there are many of them, Down East Restorative Justice is just one, they're doing the work to support their community so that the Department of Corrections, who isn't part of their community, has to do it. And they're doing work to keep that number at 80% and give us an opportunity. They are probably the best opportunity for these kids and these families and these victims. And as far as accountability goes, I heard a lot around, there might not be any accountability with these cases. I can tell you that our contract, the Department of Corrections contract with every restorative practitioner, requires an exit survey. That exit survey is from the victim, it's from the juvenile, it's from the family, and it's from the community members. And we require that our practitioners have positive youth outcomes with the cases that they're handling, or we won't fund them. And so I hear you, and I hear the concerns, but I just want to tell you right now that Down East Restorative Justice is one of the practitioners that we support. They've gotten incredible guidance from the Restorative Justice Project and the Mid-Coast for many years. And they've chosen to branch off on their own, which I applaud them for. And I look forward to continuing to work with them, continuing to support them, and really continuing to learn from them. So thank you for your time.
I think he's made a great case for why the state should be stepping up. Corrections is thrown in our laps, whether it be the jail or this, all of them do great work. This organization does, we just heard, does great work. But I'm sorry, but the state needs to step up, and they have not been as evidenced in our jails. But thank you for making
Just to clarify, step up in what way?
paying for it.
Applying more funding. Our jails are underfunded. This group here, if that work is so valuable, the state ought to recognize that, and they should be funding them 100%. County taxpayers shouldn't have to do, to fund state correctional issues.
As we're having to do in our jails.
I'm sorry you feel that way. I would respectfully disagree that this is a community-based program. There should be some source of funding. We are funding them. We're funding them more than you funded them. And we're asking for you to partner with us and say that you care about the kids in your community. You care about all those juveniles within Hancock County, but we are funding them, and we're funding them throughout the state, like I said, at a tune of over $1 million.
Well, and communities, I agree there, communities should be stepping up too. I'm just, anyways, it's a settled issue. Thank you for your comment.
Bill, can you repeat the ones that you wanted to,
I want to do the 9,000.
for EMDC?
CNDC, Special Friends at 53, University Extension at 72, Soil and Water at 20, Next Step at 9,000, Planning Commission 16,500. I think that's 131,800. Something like that. And all come from the community benefits account.
And where does that bring our balance there?
Well, let me go through, I got a couple other issues here to discuss in it. So I think they just.
I'll second the motion.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Before we vote on that, gentlemen, I'm going to suggest I've had a discussion since our last meeting with Fire Chief in Ellsworth, who was the chairman of the Hancock County Volunteer Firefighters Association Fire Academy. Last year, or this year really, they had the academy and whatnot, and the academy lost $8,000. They're having to pay for instructors they didn't budget for and so on. And so in order to address that shortfall for the 23 season, I'm going to ask that the Hancock County Firefighters Association's grant be increased to $52,000 from 44. So that's going to be another motion I'd have. Then I'm going to suggest that home be funded in the amount of $20,000 from ARPA. So that would
Okay,
be
so what's on the table now?
131,800 for everybody except restorative justice, volunteer firefighters, and home.
That's the second, and that is what went through our budget process. That's what came out of
Right, that's
the
the case.
BAC,
Right.
our budget process and the BAC.
All right. Well, that's a portion of what came out of it.
Yeah, but the others you're gonna cover.
It's a different total, Paul.
What,
This totaling 131,800 to come out of, okay,
at this point, with this motion,
right.
right, I have an additional 2 motions.
And was that seconded?
Yeah, seconded.
Yeah.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now I'd like to move that we fund the Hancock County Firefighters Association in the amount of $52,000 to be taken from community benefits account.
Second. A question, that can't come out of ARPA?
Well, I tell you, I don't know if you can't supplement your operational budget. And
Okay, that's what we do.
I think so. I think that'd be a stretch. I mean, if we were buying them, a fire truck for training, it might be different, but we're applying this to their entire
Their
operating
operating budget,
budget.
yeah, okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now we move that we fund home co-op in the amount of $20,000 from ARPA funds.
Second. And that, to me, meets the.
Yes, because they want to
Definition.
put that towards housing.
Yes.
Definitely.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Now, if we could move to sheriff's account, seems where the sheriff is patiently waited here all morning.
I'm sorry, I'm just wondering what is actually the result with Down East Restorative Justice at this point? Thank you.
They haven't been funded for this year. Like Commissioner Clark said, if a convincing argument can be made, it can come back to the county and ask for community benefits funds.
And there would be nothing to preclude them from coming for when you set up this grant program.
No.
Yeah.
You mean for 24?
That's
Yeah,
right.
24.
Well, I'm sure that's what they want to do ultimately. In 24, we're going to raise a certain amount of money or identify a certain amount of money and then put out applications and everybody would apply for that grant money. And so that's where you'd want to get your funding for 24.
And as I understand it, because I know a couple of commissioners from other counties, and that's sort of the practice now is to move, move some of these agencies into the budget or through a grant program. Is that's my understanding, and they're working towards the Penobscot, and I think it's Andrew Scott, right?
Sure.
Next.
Well, I'd like to go back to the some of the motions we made before when we sent this to the Budget Advisory Committee.
Yeah.
One of them, I think we need to re-examine is the recommendation that we increase the sheriff's revenue from the sale of assets from 20 to 40,000. In talking to Mike, Mike thought that perhaps we would be trading in Tahoes, and we won't be trading in Tahoes for 2-3 more years. At that point, we'll be going from maybe $1,000 a car to maybe as much as 10,000 traded. So I think that's where Mike thought we were going. And so the sheriff is not going to raise 40. He'd be hard pressed to raise 20. It's when you're selling those Fords. Yep, whatever. Yep.
It's up to you.
So anyways, I think it would be a stretch, even if we reduce that to 20, but how big a stretch is 20? Sure.
I would like to think the price of, but if you look at what used vehicles are going for, it's absolutely insane what they're going for. We put that together thinking we were going to sell 4 to 5, depending on where we shook out, with the rest of the budget at $5,000 a piece.
Okay, so 20,000 is a fair amount.
I will do my best to get that, yes, sir.
Okay, so gentlemen, I'd like to move that we reduce the sheriff's revenue line R10-300, sale of sheriff's assets from 40,000 to 20,000.
So, because you don't think you're going to be able to make that.
He's not going to make 40.
So what's happening here is we're making the number bigger now instead of smaller.
Yeah, but we're being more honest with, if we know we're not going to get it, we're just driving ourselves up our wedge and how much we're going to have to pony up at the end of the year to cover our shortfall. I'd rather identify that now than in December.
So what did, the BAC came back with, agreed with our 20, right?
No, they
Excuse me,
stayed with 40. Yeah, we didn't.
So, and anything above and beyond that goes in there is higher revenue, but what we'll try to do is put a realistic budget together.
So where are we? We've taken some action. You have that spreadsheet up, that's why I'm asking this question. We started today at 11.8%, 11.9%.
So zeroing out all the third parties took it down to 10.21 or 309, 751, 68 above. That's it.
Okay, we still got to find 309,000 just to get under our.
Because you only really took out that total 178, whatever it was.
Yeah, okay, no, but that's just. John, we have a motion on the floor that has not been seconded. Did it die?
I'll second the motion.
No, which one was that?
Reduce from 40 to 20. Nobody seconded that motion.
I'll second it.
Well, we were discussing it. I mean, I'll second it.
Somebody seconded it. Thank you.
All those in favor?
Well, hold, before, so I'd just like to know what that number, if we had 20,000, just trying to keep back a number.
We have to reduce the revenue amount in Department 10 to 20,000.
By 20,000.
Same thing.
Oh, yeah, exactly. Yeah, sorry.
We're down to 329 or something over LD1.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get to LD1 because boy,
No, but we gotta, I'm just saying, Paul, that we've got to be realistic with some of these numbers. I mean, if we want to create a pie in the sky budget, that's easy.
Yeah. So we're ready to vote?
Yeah, all those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Aye.
Now, if we could, you guys mind if we go to the sheriff's department?
Well,
I didn't bring my numbers with me, Commissioner, so.
That's right, I think
share
you-
them with me. Sure.
Yeah, I think this is more discussion. You know, I sent you my name, if you will, for cruise. I didn't bring my own copy. You guys have yours. Can you make a couple for? As we know, we can purchase. We can purchase cruisers out of the ARPA fund. Now, the sheriff has indicated that, and we kind of agreed that it appears that he's going to need probably roughly 5 cars a year. And he's putting 55,000 per car, which is $275,000. Well, gentlemen, if we could take that out of the budget for a couple of years, that's a 4% decrease in the budget. And I would like to propose, if you look at the, I'm sorry, Monica, can you give the sheriff a copy? I'd like to propose that this year, we've already purchased 2 out of the budget, correct, Scott?
We bought with ARPA, we paid for the 2 with ARPA money.
Two earlier in the year. Out of
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Early in the year, we bought 2 out of the
Yeah,
budget,
and
right?
there's roughly 80,000 in that.
Right, okay, yes, there's 81,000, anyways, total. I'm proposing that for this year, 22, that any purchases made between now and December 31st, we take out of the ARPA account for the purchase of cruises. That will leave and then reserve what the sheriff has in the cruiser account to his G account, which leave us a balance of a little over 81,000 for the end of 22. And then for 23 and 24, and we may have to, I'm not sure if, based upon what Kitty told, what Monica told us this morning, we'd have to relook at this, but basically in 23 and 24, that we buy all cruisers out of ARPA, and we don't raise any money in the budget for cruisers. And starting in 25, we continue to buy cars out of ARPA, but we start putting in 25, 1 car, and then we reserve that money. The next year, 2 cars, reserve that money. Next year 3, reserve that money. And so that when we no longer have ARPA funds available for cruises, we have an amount of money in the reserve account to put with monies we raised in the budget so that we don't have this big impact of nothing one year and 5 cars the next. And so if we could come up with something like this, we could reduce the sheriff's budget.
I think it's 100,000.
By $110,000 in 2023. And still give the sheriff the cruisers that he needs. We'll just buy those out of ARPA.
and not only that, we've increased the time from
4 years roughly to 5,
five.
going with those townhomes.
Yeah,
Correct.
yeah, to me, that's a responsible thing to do. It's just going to hit, that in 26, there'll be enough money there to buy 5. But then every year, we've got to be raising the money for 5.
If we followed this in 20, by the time ARPA runs out of money, the last year we could spend our ARPA money would be 27. We're gonna have 381,000 in reserve account. In 28, 28, we're gonna raise 200. We take the other, if he needs, we take 75 out of the reserve account, and he's got his 5 cars. The next year we raise something like that. In other words, it's a combination of what we raise and what we take out of reserves to meet his needs for cruises. And we don't have that huge spike that,
And I'll just throw another thing in there. Remember that when we do those town contracts, we figure in on replacing cruisers, so there's revenue that goes in there as well that'll accompany this money.
right, and I couldn't find a way to factor that into the plan. But it's like you say, in the back of your mind, you know that somewhere along the way here in 3 or 4 years, we're gonna have enough money in that account to buy a car. So that's just only gonna add to the reserve account.
Exactly.
So, yep. So what do you think of the plan, guys?
I support this. I mean,
It is shortened, it does need to be shortened by a couple of years. Because my understanding is the last time money can be spent is 2026.
Oh, that's right, too. It's 26. So we'd have to decide in 24 that we're gonna spend X amount of dollars in
Yeah.
25 and 26 for cruises, yep. Okay, so basically we might wanna back that 50,000 up to start raising that in 24. Right, and then in 27, that buy all the cars from the budget and G account. And there's nothing that says next year, the year after, we can't modify this plan based upon what's going on, so.
Makes sense to me, Commissioner.
Yeah.
so,
So if that's the case, I'm gonna move that we reduce the sheriff's vehicle line 70-300 vehicles from 110,000 to 0.
second,
Just realistically, talking to the dealers, I don't think I could get any anyways. Since you're gonna purchase those with ARPA funds now, Ford isn't taking any, not that we're buying Fords, but Ford isn't taking any orders and GM isn't taking any orders right now, so God only knows. So I think this-
You still have an opportunity to get some out of Mass, though?
I do.
Okay. But nevertheless, for the planning for 23, this is okay with you?
Yep.
Yep,
I can
okay.
live with it.
okay, so that brings us where, Michael?
Well, we haven't voted on that.
Oh.
You okay with that, John?
Second, I said second.
Yeah. That doesn't sound enthusiastic.
Sounds like a definite maybe.
These are tough times, John. I know your reluctance. I don't know what else to do.
No. I was the second. Bill was-
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 How much easier can you lose $100,000 of
And walk away smiling.
that? Walk away smiling.
I don't think I found anything else in the sheriff's budget you can do.
Well, what about,
You got maintenance, we have to come.
what about this opioid thing? I mean, that's a check. Is there anything that we could realistically apply half of that to, or, I mean,
Well, the money from isn't the money from the state to pay for the,
Nurse?
yeah, we can't mess with that.
No.
no, I'm not.
I think he's talking about this last check that came
Yeah,
in.
I just mean like, we can't use that money to pay for when that.
No,
money's
because
gonna
that's
go towards.
that's a grant back to us, right?
Yeah,
And I don't see anything in the sheriff's account that's drug related to, no.
No.
And,
No, and we've discussed that it really belongs in the jail.
Yeah, and it really belongs to programming and all types of things.
Yeah.
I mean, we could dedicate it to the drug task force, but I think that's being funded well enough. I think the forfeitures,
Yep.
reimbursements, I think you're right. I think we need to we need to really put this towards programs that perhaps jail couldn't afford out the money. And a combination of that and trying to offset some of the expenses you have with this so that you can have more money to operate.
Because we are using some of the inmate benefit funds to offset some counseling services. That would free up. Because that's gonna run out someday, the inmate benefit fund.
Yeah, they keep hacking away and hacking away.
That's, you know, that's
What the commission is.
I think one of one of them has like 6 or 7. It's either 6 or 12.
I'll call Julie, see if Julie can come up.
You all done with me, gentlemen?
Well, the jail issue, I mean, is there anything, I am just trying to, I'm working hard.
Are you gonna take a final vote on the budget today?
No.
No,
Then we'll go look at what there is and come back to you the
well,
next
the
meeting.
jail doesn't affect this budget.
Well, he's talking about.
I mean, we don't need the jail information today because that doesn't affect this budget. That number's fixed in there, so that's not gonna change.
That's the
Oh, that's right,
the
that's
4%
right, that's
cap
right.
we went on.
That's right.
But we can come back and share with you some of the programming, some thoughts and
Not
ideas.
today.
No, next meeting, because we haven't had a chance to look at it.
I had forgotten about that. That shift in that.
Yeah, but it could reduce that percent at some point.
Yes, I'm gonna do that right now.
Yes, let's go
Now,
to,
We all good, gentlemen?
yes, thank you.
Thank you.
let's move to maintenance.
We'll be in touch later.
Now, Paul, I know how you feel about me making suggestions that only add to the misery and not solve it, but Dennis came to us in the first session we had, Dennis Walls, and asked for a $2,600 increase in his annual pay for maintenance director. Just before we sent this to the BAC, we cut that out at 2,600. And I gotta tell you, I made that suggestion, but I made it on the idea that I guess I wanted to give them this lower number, and then we could reconsider that after we got it back. I can tell you that with over 4 years' experience with county government, Dennis Walls is by far the most qualified individual we've ever had as a courthouse maintenance director. And it would be an absolute shame to lose him somewhere else for $2,600. And I'd like to see us put that 2,600 back in, show him we support his efforts and
Where is that?
It's the top line for
maintenance,
It's 70.
01-100 manager.
Okay, so you're making that motion?
I'm moving that we increase the recommendation from BAC for the managers 01-100 to $70,000.
And it's now it's 60.
67,396.
57,396. So that's a $2,604 increase.
Second.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And that needed to be unanimous.
Okay. Julie, way back in the dark ages, when we were putting this budget together, we had a very interesting conversation with everyone revenues. And for the life of me, Paul thought there was a fee increase. You said there wasn't for the BAC, but for the life of me, I thought there was a significant increase in something.
Wait, I think we're talking two different things. And I thought that after the budget meeting that night. Okay, yes, we've had an increase in our fees. But I thought when you were talking about it, you were talking that probate had their fees increased. And that is probably where it came. No, I honestly took it that you were saying that probate had their fees increased, which has to be a statute.
Okay, no, so
That's-
nevertheless, fine.
I probably misspoke.
Yeah, well, I mean, I was as confused as Paul was, I guess, at the end, but anyways, So fees, line 102 in your revenue,
Mhm.
that has been increased, that will show an increase in the rate for 2023.
There's no increase in the rate, but the fees have increased. We have steadily started recording a few more documents that we did for several years. Because that is based on document count.
So what's increased?
What,
It's not what you get per paper, it's how many papers
how many documents?
documents.
Yes, yes.
And why do you think that document count is going to increase?
Is going to increase?
Yeah, why do you think that?
Well,
She thought it was.
given the things that are going on, I honestly believe that foreclosure action is gonna pick up. Again, because it's really dropped right off, but I do.
Yep. So anyways, in your line 102 fees,
Mhm.
you had 500,000 for your 2022 budget, this year's budget,
Mhm.
and you've not increased that for 23. So if you believe there's going to be an increase in the number of documents and there can be more revenue there, we need to increase that and find a few more bucks.
Yeah, I wouldn't increase it overly. Okay, but maybe,
Well, can we,
hang on a second, I can give you a ballpark. I would say you could do 20 or 25 pretty easy, because that's 1,000 one-page documents. So, I mean, and, lien activity could be up.
what is the net impact of not getting your revenue, not achieving your revenue?
What is it?
Is it any different for your agency than it is for anybody else, any other?
No, but I'd like to meet it. No,
We both do, we both do.
yeah.
Because,
Look,
I'm just curious that if we can't be a little more risky and try to squeak out a few more bucks here, your 5-year average
mhm.
and your actuals, if you will, which I know they're estimates because that was done back in what, August, July, something, I don't know when it started.
July.
Back in July, well, we had that. What is the year-to-date revenue for the,
It's a lot.
It's
a
what,
lot.
401, 485.
wait a minute, what, I'm looking at the revenue summary report. Is that
Yes,
what I'm looking at?
yes.
Well, okay, I'm looking at deeds
09, 102.
102.
What's
Year
that through?
to date,
And what's that through though? Is that through,
October.
I just want to make sure.
Okay, you said you were comfortable at 25?
And the transfer tax, you could probably, I'm trying to see, have my numbers here, I don't know, didn't you already bump that one? Isn't that what we were betting on?
Yeah,
Yeah, well, we were betting on 260, but it got reduced down to 250 at,
Right, because see, it's not reflected in what I can print off, so that's why I'm asking.
200,000 to 22.
okay, so how about this? I'm gonna move to increase deeds revenue line 102 fees to 525,000. Is that
Yep.
what you felt comfortable with?
Yes, yep.
well, I'll go along with that, but I want to increase her transfer tax.
Yeah, I was gonna take that subject up.
Okay, so I'll second your motion for 525.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 And I want to increase the transfer tax. Now, I understand this has been a boomer of a year that we might not experience in another year. But year to date, it's almost 300,000. So I would like to increase I'd like to increase the transfer tax to 275. She's gonna be well over $325,000 for.
Where are you getting?
Can I just interject here while you're throwing numbers around? When I started here in 2004, we were in a mortgage boom because the interest rates were low. And we were recording 28,000 documents a year. We have not been remotely close to that since. I mean, we're gonna be over 20,000. And I'm like, oh, great, because you know what? We were like 5 years at 16, 17. That's a huge, I'm just throwing that out there too, you know. So, you know, you can pick your numbers, but just.
Well, as Bill, you're suggesting well, right now it's at 250. Correct me if I'm wrong. You were comfortable at 260.
Yeah, we were going back and forth though. There was beer involved. You know, remember, we were talking, we were betting.
Oh,
Yes.
it's down to a six
It's
pack
like,
instead of a.
no, we weren't drinking. He was saying he was betting I'd make it.
But Bill, you now feel that you do 275, Julie, what do you?
Well, what I'm saying is that a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever it was, we thought 260 was okay. We're looking at our numbers and, you know, for this year, they're up to 325 by the end of the year minimum. And I'm thinking that perhaps we ought to be able to get 275 next year. This boom is, I mean, the houses are still selling and, you know, I'd like to see another 50,000 in revenue from.
Why do you think you're gonna, I'm just trying to follow it. You're 09, line 101.
Right.
Right now.
Right now it's 300,000. It's 298,000 right now. She's got 2 more months in revenue tax, transfer tax to come in. And
I'm just gonna
That's-
tell
that's the-
you that if
that's-
we didn't have the week that we had last week, I would not have made almost $100,000.
I mean, her
Up to
average,
this
her
last
average
month.
this year is 30,000 a month for the whole year. So that's $360,000 that she's probably going to realize for, you know, that.
Are there indications that, I mean, are there
Well,
indications?
there's no houses. The only houses to sell are big houses right now. So, you know, eventually you're just gonna not have anything.
And remember, the transfer tax is based upon the value of the house.
Yeah.
So you can either sell $1,000 million homes or 2,000, 500,000, it's the same money.
Saying everything we sold yesterday was big money.
All right. So anyways, my motion, have we voted on the first one? We did.
Yes.
My motion is to increase the transfer tax revenue line 101 to $275,000.
Second. And I'm seconding that. I'm just, like, I think there's gonna be a downturn, okay? Just with all the indicators we have, it's just when. And hearing what I just heard. Well, it's not significant to that. I don't know. It's all speculation, right?
I don't know. I'm not gonna agonize over it. I mean, I do.
No, I mean, and you know, and Julie, you should.
I do, it's my job.
Yeah,
I need to
you,
know what
when
we're
you
doing.
accommodate our request, and we're the one that says we want to take the risk.
Oh, trust me, if you take the risk and I don't make it.
And, well, that's right, and, you know, you end up getting a 6-pack of beer at Blue, go ahead and
Oh, I think it's going up.
Well,
All right, so that's,
well,
what's that,
let's jump-
$60,000 right there, right?
No, we haven't voted on that yet.
Well, no, I'm,
What do you think, John?
I think you're gonna probably owe her the beer.
Let me tell you something though. See if this makes any sense, John. If we overestimate the revenues and fail, we've got to make it up at the end of the year somehow. If we don't have any undesignated from other departments and whatnot, we got to dip into some of our funds, which is probably going to be CBA. So we'll say that CBA is going to rescue us one way or the other. You can either keep this at this number and raise 25,001 now, today, from CBA for transfer. Or you can raise 25, you can increase this to 25, and then if you fail to make it, take it from 25 when you know you need it. So I'm saying that it really isn't a risk, it's just if it ends up costing us 24.5 from CBA, we'll pay it in December instead of January. I mean, that's my rationale.
okay. Are we going to my expenses?
No,
we're done.
Wait, hold on, wait.
Wait, no, we are going to my
We just
expenses.
paid her,
Yeah,
we just paid that bill.
Yeah. we're going to my expenses.
We voted on it.
Oh,
Okay, so
yeah,
hold on.
but I just
All
didn't
those in
know.
favor?
All right, yeah, give me
Aye.
Okay, so
Okay, yeah, no,
So
we gotta
now,
go to my
now we need
revenue.
to look at those, the life that's left.
Yeah, that 930,500. I'm gonna say take
what line is that?
930,500.
Is it the reserve account?
Microfilm, contractual,
Uh,
down in the bottom.
Microfilm index?
Yep,
So,
I'm gonna say you could take 25 off from that, and that's, you could probably take more, however,
what can,
I don't know when the conversion will be complete. So taking 25,000 off of that will at least pay through October and my microfilm if it should take that long. And if not, then I'll have a little excess in my budget that's not spent. But I tried to get a date from the guy, but I didn't hear back from him today.
what comes out of this besides what we bought today?
The software that I have right now,
Yeah,
that
what
I'll
we're
have to
doing now.
keep using.
For how?
Well, that's what I mean. I tried to find out in between here and I didn't get an answer from him. So I was thinking we'd be done June-ish. But, and he said, and that is typical, he said, unless something goes wrong. So I said, if I take it to October, include my microfilm, because I have to include my microfilm in it. If anything, you'll have, $10,000, $12,000 left over on that line. But I'd rather have it than not have it.
okay,
Well, I'd rather cut it 30, then if for some reason she has to go farther than she needs to, then we find the money.
Can I tell you why I don't wanna cut it to 30? Because if you take it to 35, the next year, my maintenance fee will be 25.